Ko ia o te atopo tuki te moa na maa wai e tō mā te whakaronga ke anau e tāra wai nuku e tāra wai rangi. Numi a teina neu mai na mai ra he tāna. Ka kau tāwi tawaro ai piko i witi. I mā taki na tāwi ti tini e tama. Nā kuko i tiki atu i tō anu i a tāne, miro i a tāne, kua e tāne ranga au e tāne. Ka koto atu ana rā ko teke te o rongo kai māku. Nō runga ana mai o wai i o wane, kei reira, kei ngā te tōra takata o turi kukau i ka i ai. Ka tia ke tua ke rā tēnei ata i raro i te maru o tātā tēnei kai mo i te aro ano. Me te tukumi i ki te ao. Nei tātou ngā rau tangata me mi i ki te ao kātika. Me mi i rā ki te tai ao, ki ngā rangi i orunga, ana ki ngā papa, ki a pua tuana koe tō tonei. Ki ngā tōpito katoa, tēnei rā te rau mi i ka tukua tiki a koutou katoa. Tia no ki rātau mā koe nui atu ki te pō, kei konei rā te ngā kau, e tangi nei, e aku ngō nei, awe no e ngungu nei. Kia koutou koe i roa ti nei, ki tua atu o tēnei ā, ngama te tua atu o te wā. Kei konei rā te rau aru ai tuku atu ana ki noi a koutou, kia kōpakina kia, kia tōpakina kia koutou. Ana ki te rau aru a te rau, e te mama te moi mai rā, moi mai. Ia ka kōrero ki te unga mate ki a koutou, tere tonu te maara kaua ki ngā mātua, tino ki ngā tupuna, nora toana mai, ngā tau, ko kapo ia mai ai e au me e ti ino ati, ia koutou ka pukoro, ia koutou tuinga, i wai ongia mai ai e koutou ki te ao, ei kura taonga, ana mua koutou uki, a koutou uki e kua kina. Nore rei ki mā koro mā, ko a koutou kore o pēne, ka tuku nātu, wea noa e wāngai ake, ana ai te unga, ai wai muri ake nei ia koutou. Nore rei ka tika ki mai o a kawake, kia kui mā koro mā. Tia no ki ngā mātua o roto ana mai, Waipapa koutou te toko nui. I ka ai, e ka ano koutou te wai o mai ai a koutou kōreo, ko ti toko waru mā tēra. Wai o ngā kōreo, ko kere opa, wai o ru mā tēra. Ngā kōreo e te o ngā kōreo kapita ana nā koutou. Nore la ngā riki o te ao kuatu, te ano ngā rau pitai, tēnei rā, e tangi kaua kini. Tia no, ki te iti ki te rai, no ngā iwi katoa, taku moi o tēnei pāpā o tanga e ara kau ko ngā rau ana e ko mai nei, ka tika rā kia rere atu ngā wakarupi mai. O rea, e te ao tangata, e tino rā, koutou tātou o te ka māu, te wankoi na uraki o ki wale kanti, tēnei rā, tēnei Whakapapa o tanga mea ke nei kia tata. Tia no ngā rau ki tai, tēnā tatai. Tēnā tātou i tēnei kaupapa, me tēnei āuatanga kei ngoi a tātou ko te mate korona, ko te mate uruta. Nā tērā mate i tēnei ai, tēnei āuata, ana tēnei wāna. Koe no rā, narunga i tērā, tēnā mai tātou. Ko tia no e te wāna o Waipapa, no koutou te tonu, nā koutou tēnei tonu. Ki waka tūria mai e wānanga, e wāngai e tuku e te o ngā kōra o tātou mātua. No reira kui ara tēne ko tātou wānanga, ai ngai te ipu rangi, ana ko te ipu tonu tērā. Ko te ipu tonu tērā kui mā koronga. Ana e tua kene. No reira uri noa, tēnā koutou, mai uta ki tai, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Greetings and welcome. Good morning to one and all, to our many iwi, because this is a Zoom link. I'm sure that we have our other iwi from around the country that just our iwi from around the country that are linked in. So greetings to you. and also to our one of Ngāreru Kitai of home, of abroad, who live abroad. Greetings to us all here on this Zoom link. Just a couple of points before I hand it over to Mahanga Williams for more details. This Wananga here was called by our trustees of Waipapa Marae, Waipapa. It's the first of many Wananga, and it's really about sharing knowledge. It's about strengthening ourselves and our knowledge of who we are, and it's about development, certainly development. I also like to acknowledge the tono that was made, and it was made some months ago. It was made some months ago, and this was actually meant to be a face-to-face moana, as normal. Back there at the marae, everyone comes and feels the whole weight of the Wananga. But of course, here we are, living in very unusual times. Here we are with not only COVID, we've got the other strands coming through and hitting our country, hitting the world quite severely. So we need to stay safe. We need to look after one another and look after our families. So this is the reason why we're on Zoom. And it's just a platform at the end of the day. Of course, it's a different feel. Of course, there's some information that is more proper for the marae and to be delivered from the marae. But this is just the beginning. So to the to one and all, as I said earlier, good morning, good to be here, and kia ora mai tātou. I want to give it over now to Mahanga, then I'll come in after Mahanga e tātou. Kia ora, morena. Morena, cousin.
Morena, cousin. Nara te mihi ki a koe, cousin. Ko koe te pau kōrero o tēnei wānanga. Kānui te mihi. Huri no, kei ngā tōpito o te motu, kei ngā tōpito o te ao. Mo atarau, kānui te mihi. Kia ora rā. Welcome, whānau, welcome one and all. Very exciting to have us here in the space. And so, sorry, I'm just going to share something with you. I'll just bring it up now, whānau. And I'll just take us through it. Can everyone see this? Oh, cool. Kia ora, can everyone see the share? Does it come up? Oh, yeah, ka pai. So Waipapa Marae Trust is on a mission to engage and connect with our whānau to link them back to the marae and hapu through a series of monthly wānanga online. Sharing knowledge, skill sets, and embracing innovative learning that will help contribute towards sustaining our marae culturally, environmentally, and economically. And so we're very fortunate to have Cousin Rauru to kick us off. And so here, and read, this session has now begun, Whakapapa. January, Cousin Rauru. And then next month, dates and times yet to be confirmed, we'll have Cousin Rauru back on board here to, what is our marae tikanga, what is our marae kawa, and it's about succession planning so that the knowledge is filtered down, how we keep ourselves safe on the marae. And then the following month of March, we'll have governance training, and we've got Cousin Aaron McGregor on board, Cousin Henny Sullivan, Patsy, and myself to deliver the marae governance training. What is marae governance training? Why is it important? And how can that support us? And in the following month in April, we'll be delivering marae strategic planning. And then the following month, restoration of taonga. We've got Anise Ahi Marino Dawson, who had worked at Te Papa, who has skill sets in restoring taonga, how we look after our taonga, and how we identify taonga that is around us. And then the following month in June, Taiohi Environment, got Cousin Kirsten and Uncle Pōtonga to deliver that presentation. And then the following month, it'd be wonderful to hear stories from the Haukainga, from our kaumātua, those who had lived in Ngutuwera at home, Waitotara, around Waipapa, and those who lived alongside our other maraes. To hear, it'd be wonderful to encapsulate those stories. What was it like growing up at Waipapa? And then in August, Marae Papakainga. Those of you who are out there that's working in that space of Marae Papakainga, Kirsten is. And if there are others out there, we'd love to have you on the platform. How can we establish Papakainga around our marae? And then the following month in September, Rangatahi. Love to hear their voices. What is it they would like to see happen back at home? What are their aspirations for the marae? And then hopefully October Labour weekend, Omicron safe. It will be awesome if we all can come back home and, whakawhanaungatanga. And, to meet everyone, and we'll put another schedule for the following months to continue. We want this to be continued, hopefully delivered back at home, safe. So I thought I'd just share that with you, whānau. And so today, there are 2 sessions today, and there's a session tomorrow. Just trying to session tomorrow. So from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. today is session 1. My cousin Rauru, and then from 12 to 1 we'll break for lunch. And when we break for lunch, you can still leave your Zoom link open. You just shut your video and just keep your Zoom muted, and then you just come back in at 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. for session 2. And tomorrow, from Sunday, from 10 a.m. to 11, is an hour opportunity to reflect from today. And if you have any questions for Cousin Rauru, that would be the time to ask any questions. However, we may have some time today afterwards if you have some questions, but we thought we'll have another window just for an hour to soak up this information we're receiving, this knowledge, to reflect. You might have some other questions that weren't answered today that you may want to ask. And so Kirsten's going to collate any questions that comes up on the chat. She'll put them all together, and we'll get them to Cousin Rauru as soon as possible in the morning, so he knows what's ahead, what are the questions, so he can have time to reflect and respond 10 a.m. tomorrow. However, we may have some time opportunity for that to happen later on. And down the bottom here is I'm going to fill up this as email. If anyone's having problems linking in, because I'm busy, I'll be working this and bringing up screens for Rauru. Could they just email under akphillips.wmct@gmail.com. So write that down, whānau. If any whānau having problems, get them to email him and he'll flick them the link. So akphillips.wmct@gmail.com. So this is our session for today, whānau. And so, welcome one and all. I'll just take this off the share. And kia ora, everyone. Ka koe, Cousin Rauru, ngā mihi.
Tēnā koe maha with that detailed explanation. Okay, he's my man here. Could we have our first slide, everyone?
Yeah, which one would you like, Cuz? The PowerPoint or the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll shut that one down. Just be with me for a little moment.
Whānau. You do your thing and I'll carry on. Ka pai, so kia ora tātou e te wānau. Just a couple of points just from me, just before we get into our wānau. The overall goal here, the objective is to know who we are. It's as simple as that, but it's as deep as that as well. So that's what this morning is about. And one of the things that I've asked that we that a copy of the origins of Ngāre Kite is sent out to all of us, to all of you. And if you don't have a copy, please contact Waipapa on the Facebook page there, or contact maybe even Anaru, if you don't have a copy there, tātou mā, of that book. Now that book there, that's a thesis. It was published in 1977 June, and it's talking about our origins, of course, of Ngāre Kite, who we are, who our eponymous ancestor is, where we came from, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. So it's a great guide. It's a great guide, and that's one of the reasons why I asked for the book to be sent out. Another reason was I've spoken to a number of our whānau out there over the years, and they've told me that they've read it. They read it 10 years ago. They read it 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and when they read it, well, at this point in time, years later, when they reread the material, their knowledge base is growing. So their knowledge base is growing, and from there, they have more understanding of what's been written. So there's our guide there, the origins of Ngāre Kite, Kate, and also I'd like to pinpoint that this isn't the be-all and end-all. Whakapapa is our first kaupapa, so our topic now is Whakapapa. All right. When it comes to Whakapapa, when it comes to traditional kōrero knowledge, the interesting thing in our world, there's a number of variations there, and you'll see that throughout this wānanga. I know there's a lot of us that are new to the information. That's great. There's some of us that have been studying this information for many, many years, and that's great too. I'm starting at the papa. Beneath the water. So you've got Waipapa, right? Wai means water, and papa is the ground. So I'm starting there with this particular wānanga, starting at the beginning, really. So for those of us that do know a lot, ka pai. And you're there also as a suggestion to help others. So for the tīmatanga, this is the beginning here, tātou. So Whakapapa. Whakapapa, what does Whakapapa do? First question. Whakapapa gives us a link to in terms of genealogy, connections, to the heavens above and beyond, to the earth, to the whole world that we come from, that we're born from. So that's the Whakapapa, that's what it does. It connects us to the trees, to the birds, to the taia, all right? So this is the one of the main mahi of Whakapapa. It connects us, it tells us who we are, and it explains our relationship to the universe, right? Now, in the origins of Ngāre Kite, we've got Rauru of the gods. By the way, just another point, we're using the English version here. If you're using the Māori version, the pages are different. Obviously, the language is Māori. So, yeah, we're using the English version of the puka here, right, of the thesis. And so at the beginning of the thesis, we have Rauru of the gods. Now, this year is known as the Whakapapa, the cosmic genealogy, all right? And it's talking about the beginnings of life, the beginnings of the universe, the beginnings of the world. And it begins with Matua Te Kore. Matua Te Kore, the great void. And it goes through those stages of the void, the nothingness, right? And then as time develops, we have the stages of the night, ngā pō. Within the night is born Ranginui, the sky. From Ranginui marries Te Atatui, who is both Ranginui and Te Atatui are the parents of the stars, the planets, the cosmos, right? And from there, Ranginui then marries Papatuanaku, the earth. From there comes the world that we know today, the birds, the waters, the mountains, and so forth. This is a very sacred Whakapapa, the Wa'a time, because it's the beginning of all. From there, it goes down various stages to various gods. From the various gods to Maui Tiki Tiki Atara'am, whom fished up the fish known as Te Ka Maui, which is, of course, Aotearoa. And from those realms and those stages, the development continues, the development and growth of life, right through to Ngai Nui, Ngai Rua, Ngai Kaha, Ngai Awiki. Ngai Awiki, who married Tui Are, as Toi Tuatai, married Wairere Kianga, and Toi Tuatai, and Ruarangi, who married Rauru, and then as Rauru, Titahi, our eponymous ancestor, the ancestor of the Ngāi here on the West Coast, right? So what I've done there, in your own leisure, in your own time, you can read through the chapter known as Rauru of the Gods. Now, so Rauru, this is his Whakapapa from the gods. This is his Whakapapa from the elements. This is his Whakapapa, that connection to the universe, and so on. This Whakapapa, as I said, it's sacred, and as it should be. Over the years of held Wananga, lecture type Wananga over the years, and one of the interesting things, this was at Whakapapa, I was one of the students, I won't name names, but asked me, oh look, this wa'atai, this cosmic genealogy from the nothingness right through to Rodi, right down to Rodi. It's pretty short in terms of pages, right? And if you look at it yourself, you'll find it's quite, it's, even if for something that explains the creation of the universe, the cosmos, the world, the gods, and human life. Shouldn't it be much longer? Shouldn't it be a whole book, like 200 pages plus? And I said, well, hang on there. Let's look at this. Let's look at this. Matua Te Kore, all right? It starts at Matua Te Kore, the great void, right? Then you have the great void, the long void, and all those stages there. Then you have the nights. What we've got, what I said was, if you look at each stage, Matua Te Kore Nui, right? That particular area there, the great void, the long void, and so forth. Those are millions of years. Each void is millions and millions of years, right? And it's the same case with the nights, it's the same case when the sky and the earth were bounded together. That's millions and millions of years. So each stage is a heck of a long time. When I explained this up, that dawned on the person that asked the question. So if you, and again to ourselves, if you look at that chapter known as Rauru of the Gods, you'll find, yes, it is rather short. short in terms of in regard to something that explains the birth of the world and the universe. Yeah, but just a note there that each stage is millions upon millions of years. Okay? So from there, from Matua Te Kore, from the in the nights through Te Rangi Nui, the sky, Papatūānuku of the earth, coming down generations upon generations, we'll come to a question. Now, the question that was asked to me by some of the families at Waipapa Marae, who is Ngāti? I mean, what we do know, and there's very little that we do know, but what we do know is the oldest hapu of Ngāti, correct? It was around at the time of, well, actually of Rauru. So Ngāti ki, e tātou mā. Can we go to the next slide, please, Tess? Here it is, Whakapapa. Ngai ariki. Ngai ariki is actually Ngāriki as well. Right. That's there on the Whakapapa. So those of us that are new to Whakapapa, Ngai ariki is the father of Toi Te Uatai. Toi Te Uatai is the father of Ruarangi. Ruarangi is the father of our ancestor Rauru. So, Ngai ariki is Ngāriki as well. Now, if we take that, the first word there, ngai, the word ngai, the word ngā, the word ngāti, these are words that basically explain groups of people that are related to each other, right? So clans and wana, right? It's an extended wana, the extended wana, so relatives, right? So ngai, ngā, and ngāti are the same word. This kōrero comes from a tupuna from Waipapa known as Te Rauru, written in his manuscript. So ngai ariki is ngāriki. Now you can see with ngāriki here, who marries Te Uiare. This, by the way, is on the chapter for Rauru of the Gods, that chapter there in the thesis, Ngā Paiaka o Ngā Rau Titai, page 5. You'll see the entire Whakapapa there at the very top of that page. Okay, coming back to Ngai Ariki. So Ngai Ariki is Ngāti, right? Ngai Ariki is, of course, the hapu there at Waipapa. One of the interesting things is most of our hapu in Ngā Rauru descend from Rauru, right? So they come off Rauru. Ngai Ariki was before Rauru. Ngai Ariki is the great-grandfather of Rauru. Now we're talking about years. In terms of time, when did these ancestors live, such as Ngai Ariki? I'm looking at the 900 AD period, right? Thereabouts. As we know, our tupuna didn't have birth certificates and those sorts of things, nor did we celebrate birthdays like we do today. So the Ngai Ariki is in that 900 AD period. Yeah, so Ngai Ariki, tātou mā, that's the tupuna there at Waipapa, according to Te Horo. So that's quite interesting. A couple of interesting points there is that Rauru, our ancestor, the hapu was in his lifetime, I'll talk a bit about Rauru later. In his lifetime, Ngai Ariki existed as a hapu. And yeah, it existed as a hapu. In fact, according to my research, Rauru met his great-grandfather. And as I said, we'll talk a bit about that later. Okay? Ngaiariki marries to Uiare, and then they had Toi Te Uatai. Toi Te Uatai, a very well-known ancestor here. Toi Te Uatai, very well-known ancestor here. He was known throughout the country. Toi Te Uatai, just a bit about this ancestor, there's a bit more known, much more known about this tupuna Toi Te Uatai. Now, I'm going into some of the other iwi kōrero from around the country. And one of those iwi is the Tailā, which is Ngā Tiparo. One of those iwi is Ngā Tiawa, the Whakatane area, that knew and very familiar with this ancestor here, Toi Te Uatai. In fact, there's a lot of history books out there, written over the last basically 100 years, that has a lot of information about Toi Te Uatai. So Toi Te Uatai was an ariki. Now, why do I say that? He was a high chief, very high chief. He was born, according to our ancestors and our sources of knowledge. His father was Ngaiariki, as you can see here on the PowerPoint in front of us. According to some other iwi, he had his father was, some say Apa, and there's various other Whakapapa that had a different father and mother for Toi Te Uatai. Toi Te Uatai was a highborn ariki. Toi Te Uatai was a warlord. Yes, he was a toa tūtau. Toi Te Uatai also, at his time, was a person or an ancestor that run wana. No, I'm talking about the sacred wana, of course, the ancient wana. So he was a tohunga as well. And this is according to the East Coast traditions, where Toi Te Uatai lived. Toi Te Uatai lived around to some sources say, the Hikurangi area, Hikurangi Maunga there on the East Coast. He would then travel over to the Whakatane area. His marae there, one of them, was Kaputela. And so, yes, he was a high-class tohunga as well. And you can see through the genealogy there, Rauru the gods, and how close Toi Te Uatai is to those gods in terms of Whakapapa. And so he was a very sacred man. He was a very sacred man, a leader of his people. And in fact, he named his people after himself, according to some sources. And the name of his iwi is Te Tini Toi. And he named that whilst he was alive. And then he called his iwi Te Tini Toi. And they resided around the East Coast area, Te Tini Toi. He's one of the early tupuna that's written about in books. He's also a tupuna that can connect to just about every iwi in the country. Now, how does that happen? Because of the senior line, because of the ariki line. His descendant, that's Rauru, a tupuna that's pretty well known, as well as Wātonga, said by some to be Rauru's son, that's what we say, said by some to be Rauru's brother. I'll talk a bit about Rauru as I mentioned earlier, later. So Toi Te Uatai, his descendants of a prominent line, right, marries into all iwi over the centuries. And this is why a number of iwi can connect back to Toi Te Uatai. Toi Te Uatai. Toi Te Uatai, the Toi is his name, well, the whole Toi Te Uatai is his name. The Huatahi part means he was a only child. Uatai, right? He was an only child. And he also has another name that, to my understanding, that was bestowed upon him when he was a bit older, and that's Toi Kairaka. So a lot of the Mātātua area, Bay of Plenty area, East Coast area, there te tauranga moana, wakatāne no Toi Te Uatai as Toi Kairaka. Toi Kairako, the Kairako bit, that's referring to, well, according to the history books, and I do agree, Toi that ate, or that lived on vegetation. So you're talking about roots and all of the vegetation all the time. And so, according to some sources, is that Toi Te Uatai, he was a vegetarian, him and his people. Something that sort of going to go down over the years. No, we didn't inherit that, most of us did anyway. So Toi Te Uatai, Toi Kairaka. But my understanding from Rauru, Nauru te ngangi na te kore, Nauru te angi. Toi Te Uatai, Toi Kairaka, the Kairaka part is talking about Toi being a master warrior. That's what it means, Toi Kairaka. And Raka being one of the words for weapons, right? Most of the weapons are made from raka. And of course, you've got stone, and you've got koiwi as well, which is Waipapa. Yeah, so that's our interpretation of Toi Kairaka. He was the war lord, as I put it, so by Toi Kairaka. And yes, and indeed he was. And indeed he was a tata. I mean, he was certainly a tour, certainly a warrior, a very brave one as well. But one of the things that he's known for is actually teaching the arts of weaponry. That's why one of the areas that he's quite famous for, teaching the art of weaponry. So at his time, he done a lot. He done a lot in this time. He led his people. As I mentioned, he was a warrior. He was also a tohunga. A lot of the knowledge that has been transferred over the years from generations through generations. A lot of that knowledge comes from Toi Te Uatai. So Toi Te Uatai lived in the East Coast, very well known there. As I mentioned, he travelled to Whakatane and the Marae there, and also around to the Tauranga area. And then his issues, his descendants would then marry people of Ngāpuri, people of Waipapa, and so forth. So that gives us our connection and our bond to Toi Te Uatai. There's another Toi Te Uatai that's mentioned in history books by the Te Arawa people, the people of the Rotorua region. By looking at the information regarding the other Toi Te Uatai and the timeline, you'll find, and even the authorities, the knowledgeable people, the Te Arawa, agree, at least the people that I've spoken to, agree that it's a different Toi Te Uatai, a different generation, right? And so sometimes people read the history books and they say, oh, he was here. Oh, he lived for 400 years. No, he's a different Toi Te Uatai at that time. So Toi Te Uatai, one of his waka is Pai Kilarako. And some say that's a connection to the island of Rauru. The island of Rauru. So that's a bit about Toi Te Uatai e tātou, our tupuna. Toi Te Uatai marries Waivere Kiao. Again, you'll find in other iwi traditions, he may have married someone else, and that could actually be the case. That actually could be the case, that he did marry another line. But our Whakapapa, and you can find it again in the origins of Rauru Kitai, Toi Te Watai marries Waipapa Marae. From there, Toi Te Watai and Waipapa, as you can see here on the PowerPoint, has a son named Ruarangi. Now, Ruarangi marries Rongo. Just a bit about Ruarangi. Again, Ruarangi didn't live in Ngārau. Ruarangi, in fact, was in the Tauranga, more in the area. At the time, he was raised there. Very little was known about the tupuna. You might be asking, because you might be fresh to this whole, to what I'm talking about here. This might be all new to you. The reason why I say very little is known is that we're talking about centuries ago, right? We're talking about centuries ago. So a lot of the information about certain tupuna, a lot of that is actually known by the iwi that raised by. So for Toi Te Watai, there's a lot of information, a lot of data there in the East Coast, especially around the Ruatoria area, around the Ruatoria, around that area. A lot of information about Toi Te Watai. I did go there a couple of years ago, and I was privileged to get some kōrero. I'll talk about that when I talk about Rauru, right? So, Toi Te Watai marries Wairere and has Ruarangi. Ruarangi, came from the Tauranga area. Then, as time went on, he came into Ngārau. Ruarangi marries Rongo. And from that union, Ruarangi Kamoi Rongo, we have Rauru. And I think it's time for me to speak about our tupuna Rauru. Now, Rauru, we'll talk about his birth. It's all there in the origins of Rauru Kitai. Yes, whilst he was, when he was in Te Haputanga Waime, I'm trying to get this correct. When Rongo was hapu, there were some difficulties. The Rauru, which is the umbilical cord, right? The Rauru, the umbilical cord. It had wrapped around the body of our tupuna Rauru whilst he was in the womb, right? So ka mau te Rauru became stuck, ka mau te Rauru. From that particular situation, as our tupuna do, as part of our culture, they named Rauru. Once he was born, they named him after that particular situation with the umbilical cord wrapped around the body. They said, well, that would be a suitable name. And that's one of the tikanga that we have. There's the tikanga of bringing names from the past, yes. So you could be named after your tupuna. And there's also looking at events and situations and using grabbing a name or creating a name from there. And that's exactly what happened here. The name was created by those tupuna or those elders. They said, well, that's a unique situation there. And the whole umbilical cord wraps around the tamaiti. It's not unusual, of course, that's another. For them, it was a sign. And so they named Rauru. So his name means the umbilical cord. Right? As a child, this quarter from Tauranga Moana. And I wish like to acknowledge a few people here for it, before I may. The late Te Awanuiarangi Black, also the late Dr. Kenny Carr, and also Tāwhai Maklachi. Tāwhai is the son of the famous female orator, Waipapa Marae. We had one about that. We had discussions over the years, and they agree, and then some of the information is different to the Ngāro, to us here at home in Ngāro. So that's that variation stuff, right? Rauru, according to Tauranga Moana and the East Coast area, they say his father is Toi Te Uatai. So you can see this Whakapapa here in front of us. Toi Te Uatai Ruarangi Rauru. According to, actually mostly, it's Toi Te Uatai Rauru. Right? I'll say that again. Even though you can rewatch this Zoom. And our Whakapapa, the Whakapapa line to Rauru is Toi Te Uatai Ruarangi Rauru, as we can see. But according to other iwi, Toi Te Uatai is his father. And that's just a variation. According to the thesis, the origins of Ngāro Kitai, it puts it this way, that Rauru was raised by his grandfather. This is according to our tupuna of Ngāro. Rauru was raised by his grandfather, and because of that connection, a lot of people may have assumed that Rauru was Toi Te Uatai's son. So, but according to our Whakapapa of Taranaki and Wakanui, and this is from the houses of learning, our houses of learning, it's Toi Te Uatai Ruarangi Rauru. I've just got a Facebook message here. Tēnā koe. It's asking why is it that kei roto tēnei te reo Pākehā when no ka pai te pātai. So there's a question that's come through, and it's on my own Facebook. Why is it that this discussion is in English? Okay, the reason why it's in English is there's a lot of our people in Nui Tātou that don't know Te Reo, or are still learning Te Reo. As I said at the outset of this quarter, this is a 101 wana. This is talking about the beginnings, the origins of our people. And I'm taking it slow, and I'm speaking in English so everybody understands. Which is also the reason why I asked that the origins of Ngāro Kitai, the English version, was sent out to everybody. Hey, just a reminder there, Tātou, if you don't have that puka puka, that book, The Origins of Ngāro Kitai, please go onto the Waipapa page and just send a request if it can be emailed to you. Kapai? Remembering that we live in very different circumstances today. We've got the Mate Uru Kuta, the COVID on us. So yeah, which is the reason why we're having the one and the situation. Sorry, Tato Mark, for doing that, but I thought I'll answer the question because it was a valid question. So ki te kai pātau e kore, we waka ua tō ingo i ngari a whanea kene tāwa ka kūro. To the person that made that, asked that question, and it's a fair enough question, I'll talk to you a bit later. Eh? Come on. Okay, so let's go back to the Whakapapa here. So according to most of the country, Toi Te Uatai is actually Rauru's farm, right? But according to our people, I'm just reiterating this, Toi Te Uatai Ruarangi, and then Ruarangi has Rauru. So Rauru is the mokopuna, excuse me, of toi te uatai. So, from there, e tātou mā Rauru. Rauru was born, named after the umbilical cord, as a... Now, where was he born? Okay, good pathway. He was born in Whakatane. He was born in Whakatane at a place called... he was born in Whakatane at a place called Kaputarani. Now, there's other kōrero from Ngā Tiawa that's in Whakatane that say he was born elsewhere. But as I said, this is our kōrero, and this is... so he was born in Kaputarani, the marae of Toi Te Uatai. Okay? And at that time, he was taken by his tupuna, his grandfather, Toi Te Uatai, and raised by Toi Te Uatai. At a young age, let's talk about Rauru himself. Now, according to the East Coast people and the names that I mentioned earlier, Rauru was quite a vibrant sort of hautiti, really, according to some of their kōrero, young fella. But he showed exceptional skills back then. He was fit, very bright, apparently. And I'm not just saying that, because that's our tupuna, but at an early age, he was trained like most of our tupuna in the art of war, weaponry. And he was trained in the ngaere, he was trained in the bush, down by the seaside, in the art of the wale tau, the wale tutara. And when he was only young, the old people could see something special was going to come from the tupuna Rauru. He became a warrior. Now, in our eyes here in 2022, okay, you became a warrior. That's cool. That's good. To become a warrior is not an easy feat. You'll go through the training. Most people do at a young age, 5, 6, 7, around that time. You'll be training. You'll be training to be a warrior. To become a warrior is not an easy feat. It just didn't pick anybody. It's very difficult to become a warrior. To become a warrior at quite a early age, and you'll find some of this information and thesis there written as I want to So he became a warrior, then he became a senior warrior at a young age as well. Now, this is some of the kōrero that come through the wānanga about the Taiwanese. And it comes through. And this is some of the kōrero from Hapira Rangata. As well, I'll talk a bit about Hapira Rangata shortly. But yeah, he was a young warrior, and he became a senior warrior as well. Then he became a leader at a fairly young age as well. Now, as a leader, they saw he was a man of his word. His word was his gospel. So that tells us, what that really tells us there is that he was an action man. Everything he said, he done. Right? So he was an action man. And he was quite widely acknowledged for that. And that's the extension to his name, Rauru Kitai. Rauru of the one word, one mind, right? So he was a leader among men. That's our tupuna Rauru. And his fighting skills and all those sorts of things became quite, he became well known for those areas as well. According to some kōrero as well, Te Tairāwiti now, actually of Whakatane, this is from Awanui Black. He says that Rauru was put through the ancient Warewana, the ancient houses of learning, to learn the ancient knowledge, the esoterical knowledge of his people. So that's another part. But with Rauru, and Mokopuna some months back, as to what did our tupuna Rauru do to for our iwi o ngā Rauru to be named after it. And I said, well, one of the things that our tupuna important was he was the inventor of carving. Now, some tō ngā wakairo say carving in general. It's actually from ngā Rauru sources, it's wood carving. Wood carving. Now, here we are in 2022, and we're sitting here in 2022 saying, oh, cool, it's really beautiful. Of course, this is, we're talking about Rauru, and when we speak about Rauru, we're talking about generations ago. The invention of something like wakairo is huge. It's huge. Wakairo is an art form, of course. Wakairo is a form of communication, right? It's a form of communication. So Rauru created this art form called wakairo. Because Mahanga kid, I had the image, the whakairo image, please. As you're doing that, so he invented that. I liken the art of whakairo to the pen and paper. Even in our days, even, right? Because on a piece of raka, a piece of wood, they didn't only, our ancestors didn't only store their stories, their creation stories or their stories from their ancestors there on wood, but they also, our tupuna also, put day-to-day events were carved and etched into the raka, into the raka that they were carving, right? So this is a form of communication. As we know, that you can, Rauru could transform the raka into a whole storybook, which is what wakairo is. And of course, to the wakairo out there, and it is much deeper, right? It is much deeper. But Rauru was the human who created the art form of carving, the art of communicating and communicating history, communicating spiritual quarter and events of that day, right? Put it all down on the raka. And then he could go from one iwi to another, which he did, and showed them this new form, this different form of communication. Of communication. You take it from one iwi to another. And they loved it. It was a hit, you know. It's just like if we didn't have the pen and paper today, right? And someone goes along and, oh, here's a paper, here's a pen, this is what you can do with it. This is what you can do with these, with the pen and the paper, you know. So that was the same back then. He created this form of communication where you could store your historical information, and you could store also major events of the day. It's a sacred land, so one could communicate to the other, right? And he also, Rauru, from there, Rauru continued to teach this art form of whakairo around the country. He'll go right around the country, he'll travel from east to west, north to south, teaching this new art. Now, that's sorry. So in terms of Rauru Kite, there's another there's a wakatauki proverbial saying that states ngā mai a rau. That wakatauki there, ngā mai a rau, talks about the artwork. It's talking about carving at some point. And he was the inventor of carving. He was an inventor of that form of communication, and still with us today. Still with us today at Tātou Te Whakairo. And he went to a number of tohunga, a number of houses of learning around the country to teach other people this taonga, the taonga known as the Whakairo. Now, Rauru, although he was born in Whakatane, Rauru would travel between Tauranga, Whakatane, and the East Coast, around the Maunga Pohatu area, right? Maunga Pohatu, sorry, Maunga Hikurangi area. Maunga Hikurangi, Whakatane, Tauranga, he'll travel there. And as you know, a lot of our people are quite nomadic. We're quite idle. We idle there. So, Rauru would come back to Ngā Rauru here on the West Coast. He would come to the Waverley areas. That's one of the areas that he would travel to. And in the feasts, the origins of Ngā Rauru Kite, you'll find there's more information about the places that Rauru is named after and so forth. Now, Rauru would go back to visit his great-grandfather, Ngaiari. He'll go back and visit his great-grandfather and his whānau there. Of course, that's his family there, here, I should say. So Rauru would travel from Tauranga, Moana, Whakatane area, and he'll come here to visit his whānau, his family here, as they were residing in Kilda, right? He then would leave the shore of Waverley, Walker, down there at the beach, right? Kawe ea kilo toki te Waipapa. And he'll go into then row to the Waipona. Now, the reason for Rauru leaving the Waverley area, and this corridor here is actually documented by Te Horomona, because he was a Kairo, a carver. Rauru would go to the Waipona when there was after Pona. So he could fashion chisels out of the Pona. So from in the Whakairo world, this is also supported by Whakairo. Our master carvers, some of our master carvers talk about this journey from the East Coast, the Whakatane, coming all the way over here to Ngā Rauru. This is Rauru himself, going down to the Waipapa. And from there, he'll come back to Ngā Rauru, of course, and then make his way back to the Tairā region, to Tauranga areas. So, that's a bit about our tupuna Rauru. Now, you can see in front of us, which is gone now, but the Whakairo known as Rauru, right? That was Rauru. It was Rauru who created. Apparently, that's his first creation. The Whakairo known as Rauru. So the image known as Rauru, and it should be coming back up. Right. It's up it's now gone. Oh yeah, okay. There's a Rauru there. First to your left, top left. There's two Rauru actually there, and that's that circular, right? Pattern. Now that pattern there, Rauru created himself. Yeah, after himself. Right. So that as you can see there, tēnā koe my man Maha, tēnā koe, that there. This is Rauru twice. The other one was Birewa. Rauru, yeah. So Rauru created a pattern called Rauru. Okay? But it wasn't quite after himself. If you look at the pattern that's coming up, I'll talk a bit about that. So just to recap here, we've talked a bit about the origins of Ngā Rauru Kite in terms of Rauru of the gods. We've come down, and that's something that you can read about again in the thesis that you had, origin of the Ngā Rauru Kite. We've talked a bit about Ngāriki and Ngaiariki, the same tupuna, according to Te Horomo, that is. No, tērā tupuna no mea. He's a tupuna of the karika. From there down to Toi Te Uatai, and from Toi Te Uatai to Ruarangi now, we're at Rauru, talking about Rauru's, a bit of Rauru's life. A great thing about the Zoom, you can just, rewatch this whole one. Beautiful technology for you. Now, this is part of the what we see here in front of us is the part of the pattern Rauru. If you look at the pattern, you can see part of the pattern here. Look it up at Rauru pattern. That's actually the umbilical cord, right? That's the umbilical cord, the cord of life, right? The connection between mother and child, whilst in the womb, whilst the child is in the womb. That's a spiritual, emotional, physical connection. So that's the road, it's connection. And that's the umbilical cord, and that's what he had done. Now, I was talking to one of our own, Kaipa Cradle. I hope he's on here. To you, Tamati McGregor. He said to me that with regard to this pattern, if you can master this pattern, start learning how to carve it, right? If you can master this particular pattern, the Rauru pattern, you can carve anything. You can carve anything. So that's interesting. At one level, I'm thinking that that's our tupuna coming through, right? Our tupuna Rauru, teaching us his art that he left, the art of communication that he left to this world. All of the carving that we see today, according to our tupuna, Rauru, belong to Rauru, come from Rauru. Just a bit more about that, about the carving. Some of the carving, the ancient carving, the old time carving, you'll see that they're not as fantastic as some of the stuff that comes out now. And I'm talking about the image. I'm not talking about the depth. I'm not talking about the spirit of it. I'm talking about the actual look, right? And that's only because, well, they were using stone implements back in the day. So like everything, Wakairo has developed over the centuries, and that's what we have today. I had the pleasure, I think it was about 6-7 years ago, to be asked by the people of Ngāti Porou, some of the people of Ngāti Porou, to go there to do a tour. I was working with the one on Whakapapa at the time, and we had sites around the country. I'd often go up to Kaipohe, over to Waipapa, and I had the opportunity to go over to Rauru, over to the East Coast, to the Ware, known as the Rauru Broughton. And I had the opportunity and the fortune, really, to deliver a paper there. I delivered a paper there. Now, that was tremendous. And that was tremendous. The whole field. That Ware is well over 200 years old. Shared by some to be the oldest Ware, maybe, the oldest Ware that we have in Aotearoa. So there we have Rauru Nui Atoi is the name of the Ware. The name of the Ware kai is Te Tini o Toi. Te Tini o Toi. I was there delivering a paper about Mātauranga Māori. And when I was there, they talked a bit about the people of their breed. And they said, "Ngā whakairo nei, Yara mai Rauru." These are the whakairo that come down as descended from Rauru. And one of the feels, I must say, that I had was the same feeling as I get when I go to Waipapa, to Ngā Paiaka, to the Ware there. It's the same sort of feeling. And it's the same sort of look as well. So, yeah, I thought I'd just talk about that. Whilst I was at Ruatoria in the Ware Haurunui Atoi, a lot of the calls I've given today is about the East Coast, actually come from that particular wāna. And that was great. It was great at Tautama. Going there and listening, and I wasn't to be going there to teach them. But of course they turned around and started teaching there. It was a great sharing, a great time of sharing. And then I acknowledge them, and that's when the likes of Kiri Kara was there at the time. So thank you again to the people of the East Coast for sharing the knowledge that you have about our tupuna Rauru. Now, so yeah, he was the inventor of carbon. Just going back to that part there, Rauru Kitai, according to the thesis, he moved back, he moved to Ngaro, possibly, as an old man. As an old man, you can find this information under the chapter Rauru the Man, right? And there he was. He came back, and numerous houses were named after him, and Iwi was named after him. Iwi is this Iwi here. There was also, and you'll find it in the thesis as well, a tauranga in the tauranga area. So he's very prominent there. Their main wakatauki, one of them anyway, is Rauru Kitai. They acknowledge as mana, they acknowledge him as the action man and the man of his word.
Logan?
From there, Tātou, we also have Rauru Kitai in terms of iwi. There was an iwi in Tauranga that was named Rauru Kitai. Now, in the Tairāwiti, if you, in one of Api Ranangata's writings, actually, in the book He Tupua, which is a book e kōrero ana o Api Ranangata, the life and the times of Api Ranangata, He Tupua it's called. In that book, it states, Api Ranangata states that Ngā Rauru was one of the main iwi of the Tairāwiti, of the East Coast. Now, Api Ranangata, I'd like to acknowledge this person, this tupuna at this time, this leader, Api Ranangata, because he started Wananga like this. Well, it wasn't like this. That's another thing. That's another thing. It was in English, some of it, ki taku titiro. And they were called the Rauru Nui a Toi lectures, right? Now, I have those lectures. They were kindly given to me by Tāwhai McClutchy. And this talks about the history of the whole East Coast and a lot of histories of the entire country, of course, because we're all connected. And a strong emphasis on Toituatai, strong emphasis on both. And this wānanga here, known these lecture papers, Rauru Nui a Toi, Apirana Ngata would we'll run these sessions of wānanga. In one of the sections, he'd say, put out a pānu, a notice to his people, bring your pens, bring your papers, he'd say, and we'll gather it. This particular one was Uatoria, and then they'll start going through the histories. The interesting thing is, and this is where I really got the idea from this one, because of the COVID, we couldn't come together, that Apirana Ngata also used books from other authors, such as his friend Tāmawi Puman, right? Tāmawi Puman and the Coming of the Māori and various other documents to just to support, to enrich the calling. Yeah. So those are the Rauru Nui a Toi wānanga e tātou mā. So there's a lot of kōrero about Rauru and Toi in those kōrero and tupuna afterwards. And these are tupuna from the one. So what we've got to understand is that Rauru was born way before Tupi, born way before Tamatakapu of the Te Aroa, Toro of the Mātātua, and the other waka, Tamate Nui of Tākitima. He was born way before them. So he's a tupuna of these captains and the peoples that came from Hawaii. I'll talk a bit about Hawaii later, right? So that's a bit of kōrero e tātou about our tupuna Rauru. Born in the Whakatane area, according to some, raised at Kaputarangi, which is in Whakatane. He then ventured out to his to the East Coast, where his tupuna Toi would go, and to the East Coast, to the Ngāti Pro area. He'll go to Tauranga and various other places, but those are the main three. He'll also visit his wānau, his relatives here in Rauru Kite, the West Coast. Yeah, that's a bit about our tupuna e tātou Rauru Kite. At this point in time, I'd just like to I think give you guys a rest from me, give you fellas a bit of a rest from my kōrero. I'd like to mahanga up here there. If you could, Kaz, please, shortly, we're going to the video Rauru Ware. Now this video e tātou mā, it talks about another ware, or this a ware that's named after Rauru, and that once stood in Rotorua. It was sold overseas, and that's the Rauru Ware that's in Germany, in the museum over there. So here's coming up as a short clip from Television New Zealand, Television 1, Marae program, just an acknowledgement to them, tēnā koutou. And it just talks about a little bit about the histories and a little bit about the ware named after Rauru. And that's not the only ware that was named after Rauru, of course. We go to Tauranga, there's another ware there for Rauru. Ka pai, as I mentioned earlier, Ruatoria, we've got Rauru Nui a Toi. And then, of course, this ware here that's over in Germany. Yeah, so there's a bit of korero around this one. So, cuz when you're ready, the video is ware, Rauru ware. What's under Rauru ware? Yes. You're doing a fantastic job, Chief Man, I must say. Yes. When you're ready, cuz, you can play the video. Couple, we just waiting for the cuz to do this thing. Once it's downloaded, we'll be away. But a sound too, cuz. We can see Scotty Morrison. Got a bit of sound there, back.
Can you hear that?
Yeah. Well, I can't hear anyone. No, I still can't hear anyone. Can you hear it?
Can't find it. Oh, I don't know why. Can't you hear that?
No.
Oh, it's the volume's up pretty loud here. Can you hear that?
Oh. Can you ask anyone else if they can hear anyone?
Oh,
okay.
I've just stopped it now, and I'll play it. The volume now. We can hear the volume pretty loud here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's probably because the mutes are off.
Oh, right. We'll put them back on.
No. Would they be?
I don't know how to play it.
Right. Okay. How do I mute everyone? Oh, that's a good one. Oh, killed everyone. Maybe if you could take your mute off. Oh, no, hang on. There'll be background noise from where they are.
Change the audio output.
Oh, hang on. I've got a question with the video.
Okay.
Oh, right. You want me to bring up the Oh, that's recording. If I blow up my thing, I've got to enlarge this. See, maybe I enlarge there, and it brings up the Hang on, find it. I'll just drop the screen off. I'll just stop sharing this.
You have to click the sound box before we share.
Okay. Oh, the sound box. Right. So here we are. Here. See this mold out there?
Yeah.
So what do we need to click here?
So if you go to share the video again.
Share the video again.
Yeah, and there should be an option to enable the video. So is there something down there? Share sound.
Oh, share sound. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Now loading it. Right. Okay. So.
Mo te kapo ake I te ngākau me te hihiritanga o te tangata, kāre he pāinga I te kanohi hou o Aotearoa ki Tiamani. Kua tāngia a Rauru ki ngā toi a tāhua a te iwi o Te Arawa. He taonga tā uki nā Aotearoa ki Urupi. Anei ngā whakamahuki a Carmen Parahi.
Mai e te tipua, mai e te tawhito, mai e te kahui o Nāriki.
For 100 years, this handsome sentinel has stood transfixed in the landscape of Hamburg. He is Rauru, a carved relic imbued with the spirits of Te Arawa ancestors. Now, life has returned to his old bones through restoration work and the long overdue ceremonies of his people.
tō mātou haerehana mai te atanei, ka tāngia takawa mā te karikia. Kia runga mai ai a Rauru, kia kitea mai ai a Rauru, kei te kawe atunuhia, nā kaupapa Māori.
Encased in the Hamburg Museum of Ethnology since 1912, it's the first time a large delegation of Rauru's people have come specifically to visit with him, to cry, sing and laugh with him.
And whilst we haven't come across every year, we'll never forget Rauru because we are descendants of Rauru.
Rauru has withstood the destruction of 2 world wars in Germany and the desolation of loneliness.
Kei te tū ko tana ko tahi noe, ko mātou kei whenua ke, oino, kei te tū me tana ko tahi, kei te tū me tana moki moki.
Professor Dr. Wolf Kupka has looked after the museum and Rauru for the past 20 years. Rauru was commissioned by Māori art patron Charles Nelson in Rotorua, used as a tourism venture for local Māori, then controversially sold to the museum and shipped to Germany.
It felt a bit lonely, not neglected in that sense, because it was never neglected. Everybody here in the house was fully aware what he had. So neglection in that sense, not. But loneliness because long time no Maori came, so he was cut off his roots.
He admits the museum kept Rauru in a dark hole for many years so his original works could be preserved.
From the first moment I fell in love with that house too, and it took me 20 years to organize the money and to organize everything to rebuild things, and now daylight enters again and we have other materials. Now it's possible. The house is now smiling, I think.
Now the museum plans to use Rauru as an ambassador, a representative of New Zealand in Germany.
It's the ambassador of Maori culture. I think this is very valuable in these times, to have a representative of your culture here that speaks actively. It's not just a piece of art, it's much more. And the message it gives is about Maori culture and the renaissance of the Maori culture.
The museum spent over $1 million to dress up the old man for his new role.
It's beautiful. It's like the carving, so much details, and yeah.
She's become very intimate with Rauru.
I really love them, and it's my particular part, the carvings, because they are so fine and yeah, beautiful. I've never seen carvings like this before.
Has he got a character?
Yeah, a special character. He does what he wants. Sometimes it moves a little bit. Like when we work on the house, it's really like it's living.
Christiani's aware there's unease about Rauru being in Germany.
I don't care if it's like here or in New Zealand. Important for me is that someone takes really care about it. Because it's old and in such a good condition for that age, it's amazing. So you really need to be care about this house.
Te Pōroa Malcolm at the Arawa Elder believes Rauru needs to return to New Zealand.
Mena e taia te kroa whare nei ki te kōrero. Taku mōhio ka puta ona hia hia. Kia hoki atu ki tāna iwi.
He appreciates the care the museum's given Rauru, but
still falls far short of where he should be, and that is with his people.
We are the caretakers of the house, so we're talking about caretakership, and then they would have to accuse us of neglecting that.
So you don't want to give him up?
No, we shouldn't.
it seems only Rauru will persuade the museum to let him go.
Rauru and the spirits of Rauru will make up their mind. If they want to stay here, they will stay, and if they decide that they won't, the house will go back. It's not a matter, we shouldn't reduce it to a legal matter. It's not a legal matter, it's a spiritual matter.
Te Arawa has started a repatriation process for their artefacts gifted overseas. But items that have been sold are more difficult to return, including Rauru.
They've exhausted a lot of energy, a lot of sweat, wairua, and at the end of the day it comes down to finance. They've exhausted a lot of resources to maintain and upkeep our whare.
We're happy that he is in very kind hands, and I don't think we could match it at home.
The fear is that if it comes home, where's it going to stand? Who's going to look after it? And how are we going to look after it and maintain it?
Both parties are keen to develop a relationship to ease the discontent about Rauru being in Germany. The museum and Te Aroha have signed a protocol agreement over the continuing care of Rauru, and the museum has agreed to allow all visitors to the museum from New Zealand free entry so they can come and visit Rauru. And Te Aroha visitors are welcome to come and stay in here for the night. The Kiriopa family, descendants of Rauru's master carver Pene Waitere, slept in here to feel close to their ancestors.
It just seems to me that he's comfortable here.
The widow has been put to us now.
All concede the debate will continue over whether Rauru should forever remain in Germany. The challenge is how they will support Rauru and ensure he's never lonely again.
Oh, nice.
Tēnā koe kās, thank you for that. Awana i tiwi tēnā no tātou katoa, he rato i tēnei āhuatanga me ngā kōrero kapitara mo tō tātou tupuna Rauru. E noho mai rā i te amana. No reira e koroa e tēnei nā rā i wakairo tia mai, tēnei ware tupuna. Nā rā ai wakaora mai ai tō tātou tupuna Rauru. Kia tū mai ai a te wai au ki te marama, ana kia tū mai ai a te rā wai. Te arawa, tēnā hōtau. Tēnā hōtau te mana tiaki o tēnei o ngā ware kanu te arawa, kanu te mea. Iau ka mea kene ka maara ke au ki te koroa Malcolm. E koro tēnā koe. Tainua rā ki te manu onenga. Koro tō ana mai o te arawa ko koe tēnā mauri ora. Mauri kino. So I'd just like to acknowledge the people of Te Aroha here who have a strong connection, Whakapapa wise, in terms of genealogy to Rauru. This tupuna wari is, that's Rauru. Again, as I often say, Rauru, he's got a nomadic person, so much so that he's over there in Germany at Tatauma. So he's out in the world, Te Wānau. And we link then to that warrior, of course, being Rauru. And if he ever gets a chance to go over to Germany, well, there might be a hiding there might be a hiding up for us. If we can ask the Te Aroha people, we too, the descendants of Rauru Kitai of the West Coast, can go over there as well. E Tatauma. Ka pai. So beautiful clip there. And again, Television New Zealand, karanga mai, Scotty Morrison. Just giving an shout out there to you as well, Carmen. I know Carmen. Tēnā koe te tuhi. Okay, right. So just to recap what we spoke about, or what I spoke about earlier. This is Rauru, born in Whakatane. I'm just reiterating. E Tatauma, well known in Ngāti Porou, well known in Whakatane, Tauranga Moana, inventor extraordinaire that went around the country and shared this art form of whakairo. Now, just going back on that whakairo part, there's a lot of people say, yeah, but it came through Ruata Pupuke, Ruata Wananga, Ruata Tauta, and so on and so on. That's the origins. That's the atua side of things. That's the spiritual birth of whakairo. Rauru was the human that created the art that we see today. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, it's been fashioned and groomed over the years. The actual whakairo itself, the art form itself. But still, it holds our stories, it holds our kōrero very well, very well. So, you know, we can, as descendants of Rauru, can really be humbled by this artful work that our tupuna made. You know, in terms of Rauru and iwi, you just don't call an iwi after anybody. You know, there's reasons why you would name your iwi after a certain tupuna. And Rauru, here in the West Coast, ngā Rauru that wasn't Tauranga, Apirana Ngata's kōrero Rauru being actually another name for the East Coast, if memory serves, that's in the book He Tupuna. So, you know, he's very prominent, very prominent. Born here in Aotearoa. He did not come from Hawaii. That's one of the main things I want to drive home here. He did not come from Hawaii. He was here. Even though there's history books that place him on Old Town, if you look at examine the traditional knowledge, you will find and see that Rauru was here. And they speak highly of Rauru and speak about, I'll use the indigenous word, as indigenous connection to Aotearoa. Toi Tuatahi was born here. They did not come from overseas. So we are an old people. So just coming back to Ngāriki, Ngāiri Ariki, that's our hapu there, Waipapa. So in saying that, and I'll talk a little bit about Whakapapa later, Ngāriki, the hapu at Waipapa, connects to Rauru. From Rauru, it connects to all of our hapu and ngā Rauru. So this is also about the connections. It's quite clear. We can see. So I hope that's helped us. E tātou mā. Someone just, kia ora with Facebook again, kia ora, was Rauru an ancestor of Poraurangi? Yes. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. He was an ancestor of Poraurangi. He was an ancestor of Paikea as well. So, moving on, e tātou mā. At the top of the hour, which is 12 o'clock, we're going to have lunch for an hour. We're going to have a bit of a kai, and then we'll come back at 1 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, and what we're looking at is the descendants of Rauru and Ngā Rauru. We're looking at the Aotea and Kupe stories and various other connections to our marae as well. So there's a bit of kōrero later, and I think what you were saying earlier there, Cousin Mahanga, yeah, there will be some times for questions if there are any questions. Actually, I'll just come in right now. Mahanga, are there any pathways?
Not so far, but hello whānau is, yeah, I'll just put it out there, nothing's come on the chat, pātai, but there could be whānau. Is there anyone here that may have a pātai?
Not at this point. Oh, you're killed.
Kia ora Rauru, kia ora e te wānau, ko aisa tēnei. Kia ora, I'm well, thank you. Pleased to be on board. I suppose my pātai was a bit long-winded, so I didn't want to ask it in the group chat. But if Rauru was born in Whakatane and has the connections to the coast as well through the puka puka you're telling us about of Ngata Aroha Mai, I've forgotten the name, then does that make us all Te Arawa and Ngāti Porou?
Kia ora, so firstly, great to see you. Great to see you, and it's good to see that you're well there. Now, firstly, that's a good question. It gives us a link there. In fact, they're all linked to Rauru, right? So Rauru is generations before. I'll give you an example. I was going to bring the example up later on, but I'll do it now. So according to our tupuna, let's go to the Waka Aotea, the Canoe Aotea. We have Turi, Turi who marries Rongorongo, Tūtawa Wānau Moana, Tonga Pōtiki, Pāaka Paurua. So that's from Turi down, right? Just explain. But let's go back to Rauru, right? So Rauru, Rākau Māui, Rongotea, Puruora Turi. So 5 generations before Turi, the captain of the Waka Aotea is Rauru, right? With that point. It's the same with the captain of the Te Arawa. He is generations after Rauru. And the Ngāti Porou, or Porourangi himself, the ancestor of Porou, Ngāti Porou, he's many, many generations after Rauru as well. So yes, there is a connection. And the connection is, Isa, that they are, all these iwi that you've mentioned, are descendants of Rauru. Yeah, so we're related that way. That doesn't make us them. That makes us us. You know what I'm saying? So we all come off the one ancestor. Put it that way, though. Okay.
Kia ora.
The book that you referred to was written by Dr. Ranginui Walker, and it's called He Tipua, H-E, next word T-U-P-U-A, and it's the life of what was I say, of Api Rangata. It's talking about his life, right? And in there, in that book, he talks about Ngā Rauru being one of the names of the Tairāwhiti, or in the Tairāwhiti. Okay? So if you can look that book up, good read too, long read, man. But yeah, we are descendants of Rauru. So kapai, good to see you again, Isa. Yeah, if there's any other questions, there's 2 things that you can do. Actually, you can ask questions now before we go into lunch. Actually, yeah, no mind. Kapai. So while you're thinking of your pātai, the other way, because there's an hour session tomorrow, we'll be answering the major questions there at Tātou tomorrow. Kapai? So yeah, I'll take some pātai now.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Oh, kua tesha te awhidani o. Thank you for your kōrero so far. I just asked the question in the chat, but I can just read it out. So just following the kōrero about Rauru being like the creator of carving, I was just wondering like if wahine Māori are allowed to carve like following tikanga of Ngā Rauru?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. Because the short answer is yes. Now, but, there's a but there. Depends on who the wahine is and the purpose of the carving and all that. Yes, there are in our iwi, Ngā Rauru, stories of our tupuna wahine, our who would carve. It was pretty rare. But yes, they could. So and the reason, as I mentioned, was the purpose and also the whakapapa of that person that's doing it. Normally, no. So I'll put it this way: 95% no, only because the wahine, the woman, is known as the creator of life. She carves herself, and who do you carve? Well, the children. We have the ability to carve children. But to answer your question, yes. And I'll actually write that down because we've got a tikanga session coming up, and I might give you a bit more information about that. Come on. Fantastic question. Any more? These questions also give my throat a bit of a rest. Geez, I was just looking at the time. Geez, you fellas can talk. Oh. Yeah.
Kōrero, any more pātai whānau? Kōrero, this great opportunity from what Cousin Rauru has presented.
We might leave it there. Well, we've got quarter to 12. What I want to talk about now, just do a bit of a recap. From doing the recap, I'm going to talk about what's going on after lunch. Ko kapai. All right, so we have spoken about Ngāriki. Ngāriki and Ngaiariki are one and the same ancestor, right? So very old. A tupuna of Rauru, a great-grandfather of Rauru, Ngāriki, right? We've spoken a lot about Toi, the Tuuatai, a prominent ancestor around the country. Rauru himself, and you can just revisit this site. Great video there, talking about Rauru, who now resides in Germany, and various other kōrero that pertain to Rauru. He was an old man when he came here, according to our sources, and apparently he died here. He died here in the story. And I just want to make a point that here that you would, there's the neighbour's children yelling. I'll close the window shortly. This is one version. This is our version. Other iwi have their own version of Rauru, but very similar accounts of what Rauru had done and who he is, right? So that's the kōrero there. Coming up after lunch, we're going to talk about Te Kāwirere. What is that? What's happening in the story? We're also going to talk about kupe. We're going to talk about turi. And then we're going to bring down the lines of Whakapapa to some of our marae throughout the Ngārauru region. And that's the main point. And we'll see those connections there. We'll see those connections as we go through our journey. And just a reminder to everyone, you can write your questions on the chat, and we will get back to some of those questions later, Mark. You don't have to come on. I know some of us are shy to come on the actual Zoom and ask questions. That's all cool. That's all cool, family. You can just type it, type your question, and then we'll answer it. So what will happen in that space is that you type your question. When it's question and answer time, Q&A, Mahanga will read the question out. Okay? So you don't have to come on the Zoom as such. So yeah, that's nice and simple and nice and strong. E tātou mā. So again, to all of our viewers out there from around the world, kia ora. And to those of us that are out home here, tēnā koutou. Well, and I just wanted to really make it clear that this is 101. This is the basic level of information that's going out, because it will build. It will build. There is other kōrero Rauru. There's Rauru who was by some even who was treated as a god, a natural god, and various other kōrero like that, right? So this is not the be all and end all tātou. This is just that nice, good connection. And I do bear in mind, whilst doing this, I've done a couple of these back in the day, these types of lectures, but I like yourselves, or like a lot of us, like to actually be there, be there in the water, be there at the marae, be there at the rohe, and go around and do the kōrero. That will happen. That will happen. So this is just the beginning of the kōrero for us, e te mana. So coming up after lunch, we're going into the Kāwirere kōrero. I do know that there's actually a couple of our whānau out there that this information is quite new. Or quite new. They just haven't read the book, because they were asking for the attachment. They said, "Oh, what's that book? I've never heard of it." Yeah, so greetings to you. Just for you. This is information that we should all know. that we should all know. And, it's about passing it on to our families as well, just giving it on. Knowledge is all out. Yeah, it belongs to us. This is our fault. And this is our information. So, just send it out. So, back to Waipapa again, of course, for the privilege and in regard to helping out one. Because if you come off Ngāriki, and then Ngāriki wina tupuna o Blackwood, well, we all come off Ngāriki, ka pai? And that. So, ka pai e tātou mā, just gonna look at my time. Right, it's 9 minutes away from lunchtime. Yep, it's 9 minutes away from lunchtime. So I think we'll, cousin Mahanga will take a break here. And I'll catch you all up again at 1 o'clock. Ka pai? So, mauri ora e tapu, mauri ora.
Well, because just before we go to lunch, whānau, just leave your move buttons on. You can leave your cameras running. Anything else?
I've been able to get a copy of the Māori version of the thesis, and that's gone out to everybody on my mailing list. If you haven't received it yet, please send me your email address and chat, and I'll forward that through to you during the lunch break.
Oh, kia ora. Hey, cousin, would you like to, bless our kai? Give us a code here for our kai.
Good idea. I'm a bit famished at the moment, so kia ora tātou. Wherever we may be in the world, where we may be at home, this is a blessing for our kai. Nau mai ngā ua e ora nā. Ia rā mai rā koe i wakatuku anuku i wakatuku ara. Tā wia kia re, ua ia tamai te ao marama. Ahoe no turuturu o witi wakamaua kia tina.
Tina.
Au me ui e tai kia.
Tai kia.
Kia ora, have a good lunch te tātou mā. Back at 1.
E kai whānau, we'll be back at 1. Kia ora rā.
Kia ora, Cass. I'm going for lunch.
Wow. I'll put out jug on, cuz.
Nice.
Yeah, the recording has started again. I just heard that in my earpiece. So what's happened here is we've spoken about Ngāriki or Ngaiariki. That's one and the same tupuna. Ngaiariki has toi te huatahi. Toi te huatahi has ruarangi. Ruarangi has rauru. Our eponymous ancestor. Spoke a bit about toi te huatahi. Spoke a bit about rauru. And from there, just other information for us. Okay? Now, I'd like to just pick up on what something you said, Mahanga, around you were brought up in the Muopuku area. That's one of the waka there is Kula Opo. Kula Opo is the captain of borders, Watonga. Watonga, according to our kōrero, as the son of Rauru. Yeah, so these those connections here again. And we can go into any time. Yeah, so you know, as I said, the descendants of Toi Te Uatahi and the descendants of Rauru migrated. They married into different iwis at a stage in life where, well, the country wasn't young, but before the coming of the waka. Right? Before the coming of the waka. And I'll talk a little bit about the 7 or 8 waka that came from Hawaii a bit later. But Mahanga, if you could bring up the next slide, and it's called Other Whakapapa. There's Mahanga doing that.
Sorry, cousin, is this the one to do with Joe Williams?
No, a slide.
Oh, slide.
Yeah. Okay. So you got our Māori, the Māori world, and you should have the.
Yes. Okay, the PowerPoint.
Good. Oh yeah, sorry, I should have explained that a bit better. Cool. So as Mahanga's doing, bring up the PowerPoint just so we can see that. Yeah, our tupuna, good parts are from Iceland, links into all of the iwi, well, the majority anyway. You know, as far afield as Waikouti, the Channel they have loaded kōrero down there. To Waipapa, there's a bit of kōrero there as well. And of course, up here in the north, the northern parts of the North Island, I should say. So, yeah, so for those who have just joined us, this is the Waipapa Wananga. Waipapa made a request to have a bit of a kōrero about our tupuna. Yeah, leave it there, that'll do Te Kāwi Rere. Okay, now we come into Te Kāwi Rere. So, Te Kāwi Rere e tātou mā is the flying people of Ngārauru. They are the flying people of Ngārauru, or we are. Now, there's a whole chapter in the origins of Ngārauru that speaks about Te Kāwi. And all I'm going to do is link us back to that information. All I'm going to do is get a bit more meaning around that. Now, in the thesis, it speaks about, well, basically from page 1, the chapter heading is Te Kāwi Rere, the flying people of Ngārauru. That Te Kāwi Rere are a part human and part bird. Now, you'll read that if you haven't already. Now, Te Kāwi Rere were born, or the first of the Kāwi Rere, the tupuna of Te Kāwi Rere, put it that way, came via sea. So then a group of children, as it's stated in the book, saw this placenta-looking thing there on the beach at Te'o, our coastal area of Rauru. Now, Te'o is down from, if those of us that aren't familiar, if you've got the Waiunu, which is Waipapa Beach, down from there, heading southward, is the place called Te'o. And Te Ionga is where this placenta was found by a group of children. The children thought it was this odd-looking creature type thing. They took it and took the placenta and then hung it up inside of wood. And as time went on, the placenta began to move some more and wriggle. As time passed, pictures of a human type body appeared, and then so did wings. Gradually, the placenta turned into as I mentioned earlier, a winged human was there one. And his name was Te Kawewa. Here we have the Whakapapa Wananga here on PowerPoint. Rauru, who has a son, Rākau Maui. Maui has Te Ao Whakatirirangi, Rākau Maui. The next is Te Ao Whakatirirangi. From there is Tūtarangi Pōuri, then Pōranga Ue, and from Pōranga Ue is Te Kawewa. Te Kawewa acknowledged as as the ancestor of the people. When Te Kawewa it fully formed, he then began to fly in the air like a bird around the Waitotara coastal area, down to Te Ipuku, Waitotara hub, in various places up and down the Waitotara Valley and neighbouring areas. So that's the portal that our old people of Ngāre, one of them, has about Te Kāpui there. But I want to take note of the Whakapapa here in front of us. Te Kāpui there, Te Kawewa back, is a descendant of Rauru. Now, I've heard a lot of kōrero out there saying that Te Kāpui there were before that. This Whakapapa comes from our ancestors right here. Can also be found, of course, in the origins of Ngāre and Pite. Ka pai so Te Kāpui there are descendants of Rauru, not only in that particular the origins of Ngāre and Pite, but there's other references as well. And the manuscripts of the old people, and I'm talking about the old people such as Reone, Hita Rangatautei, Rima and various other writers of the 1800s, our tupuna who wrote information, a whole line of manuscripts hold this type of Whakapapa. And as I mentioned earlier, there are variations, but the main point is that Te Kāpui Rere or Te Kawewa is a descendant of Rauru. Ka pai? And that also goes into Ngāti Ruanui. They have manuscripts of the same nature. I'm talking about Tūtāne Waionui. I'm talking about Te Whare Aitu. Tito Powaru himself, he was a writer. And various other ancestors, and even into the Whangarui area. The same line with variations are written there in the manuscripts of our old people. So Te Kāpui there is an iwi. They're an iwi of Ngāre, ka pai. They were here, they were born before the coming of the Whakaonga and before the discovery, or the so-called discovery of Kupe. As they say, he discovered Aotearoa. But we can see that, well, he didn't, because there were people already here, so it was no. It was no. So there were people already here in this land that we know today as Aotearoa. So yeah, so this is a prominent Ngāre Whakapapa from Rauru down to Te Kawewa. Te Kawewa. And from Te Kawewa, various other hapu and Ngāre ki, in fact, Waipapa. This is your line, another line back to Rauru. So your first line is from Ngāre ki or Ngāre ki down to Rauru. This one is from Rauru down to Te Kāpui. Yeah, so that's the first stage of my kōrero. So there were iwi here prior to the coming of Aotea and the various other waka that came in their own time from Hawaii. Okay, Hawaii. One point with regard to this Whakapapa with Tika Waiwa'a, there are other stories. Some say, and you'll see this in the book again, that Tika Waiwa'a was gifted to Rauru, which was the power to enable Te Kawirere to fly. Okay? Te Kawirere, the flying part, there's some kōrero, I just want to kōrero about that flying. Is it actually talking about flying in the air like a bird, or is the rere, the word rere means to fly, or it also means to walk briskly and those, or rush? Yeah, that's another interpretation of the word rere. So in the manuscript, in the thesis, it gives that idea of us to really look at our ancestral knowledge and our ancestral stories, and open up. What's this really saying? What's this? Did our tupuna actually fly in the air like a bird, or is it talking about the moor bird, the actual bird itself, that our tupuna had the skills to tame the moor and then jump on to the back of the moor like a horse, that you would like you would a horse, ride it. Okay, you could ride the moor. So it could be talking about riding the moor, right? The moor bird. Or is it talking about actual flight? According to the first part there, under the flying people in Rauru, Te Kawirere, in the thesis, it's actually talking about, that first part, well, actually throughout that particular chapter regarding the flying people, it's actually talking about a flight. And according again to the research, we're the only people throughout Aotearoa, Waipapa and Polynesia that have this type of story where our tupuna actually flew in the air. Normally, you'll have stories where a ogre or a taniwa or some type of reptile would give aid to our flight in the air. So basically, our tupuna would jump on a taniwa and then fly in the air. But this particular kōrero of our tupuna saying, no, we actually flew in the air. We actually flew in the air. And for more information about this, you can read that chapter on the flying people. So that's quite unique, of course, at Tāpema. So we just said, now, Te Kawirere were some of the iwi that we hear prior to the coming of Aotea. We have other iwi, Te Kawiao, Te Kawiuapua, Te Kawiiawa, and these names and a detailed explanation to these iwi, these ancient iwi, can be found in the section on the boundaries of Ngārauru, which again is in the thesis or book that is the origins of Ngārauru Chitai, e tātou. So yeah, we're an ancient tribe, but the Te Kawirere were around the Tieke area, and they lived there, and that's in close proximity to Waipapa, Waipapa now. So these are tupuna here with the people of Waipapa, and they flew around the whole region, including Wairanui and some areas of Ngāti and so these are our tupuna, tātou Te Kawirere, as our tupuna. Now, the father of Te Kawirere is Pourangaue. Now, Pourangaue is interesting because he's known again by the East Coast people and other peoples around the Motu. Pourangaue had a bird, and the name of the bird was Te Manunui Whakapapa. And that's very, very prominent manu And he used to jump on this manu, like we did, and fly around. He used to fly from the east coast and back over to here, to Rauru. And the Ngāti Pro people also had the same story. So it's quite interesting that we had those links, Paulanga. And if you want further information about Paulanga, there's quite a few books. One of the main things about Paulanga, it was he, they say, who brought the kumara to Aotearoa. Now, there's a lot of information about different ancestors at different periods of time bringing the kumara. And again, he is one. He tātou. So poia. So ko te manu rā, so I saw a quick pātai, is te manu arua kapanga was the manu that Pauranga would write. I suppose would write because I fly in the air together. And he'll take the manu arua kapanga will take Pauranga from A to Z basically. So this is the Kāwi Rere here, very unique order, very unique history for us, for the Ngāru people. Now, regarding the Kāwi Rere, the peoples that then came after the Kāwi Rere, well, the person actually, that's Utama Pōkai, tēnā koe wā. The person that came after Te Kāwi Rere was Kupe. Now, Kupe, this is quite a long kōrero, and Matt's going to play a video shortly, and that's that Joe Williams one, just to tee you up there. Kupe, lots of stories about Kupe out there. A lot of our iwi have information about Kupe. But our information, yes, he lives in Hawaii. He actually set out to look for land because Hawaii was a very small place. Some say that the Hawaii we came from is Tahiti. Kupe was a navigator. He had left Hawaii on his waka Matahulu. I'll come back to Matahulu a bit later. His waka was Matahulu, and one of his main tasks was to find land, new land. And because Aotearoa and Te Waipapa are the biggest islands out of all of the islands of Polynesia. It's the biggest. Well, so quite huge. So we're getting a bit overpopulated there in the islands. Too many people, resources, clay, and so forth had to be shared amongst all of the people. So that caused obviously a lot of issues. A lot of issues among all of the people that were living in Hawaii. So Kupe set out one day, and then he ventured out to find bigger land, suitable land for the peoples of Hawaii. And it is said that when Kupe was on his journey on the moa, he then was fishing out that deep sea, and his bait,
and the Polynesian.
Kia ora mai, just stop there, everyone. The bait from his hook was being eaten by a weke, an octopus, known as Te Weke Amatulang. And then he followed, got annoyed with the weke, and he pursued this weke. And then in doing so, Aotearoa was discovered. Some of our Pātea tupuna state that it wasn't a weke, It was after. It was actually a ika. It was a fish. Right? It was a fish that was eating the bait. It really annoyed Kupe. So he pursued this fish, and apparently it's a giant fish. And he pursued it all the way to a place called Te Hokianga. Now this is James' cordial, of course. And this is where Kupe's wife, Kura Maroti, uttered the famous word, how, te aroa, to cloud, it's a long white cloud. And that was the discovery of Aotearoa by Kupe. Right? Kupe ventured around the Hokianga, what's known as Te Hokianga today, around that area. And then he started to, well, basically navigate the North Island. And he found the area of Pate in his travels. And there it said that he saw people. And this is a Rauru Broughton account. And those people are said to be Whakapapa. Again, this information is in the origins of Rauru Tite. Now, in saying that, there's kōrero from Tāmawe Pōmare that other ancestors say that it states in that book, The Coming of the Monk, that Kupe also saw a retreat. So that's obviously when he first came here. So that's obviously man-made, a retreat. And so that just supports, and there's other supporting information about people that were here prior, and certainly we had their kōrero. Some of them we call it the Patupaiare people, which were part human and part god sort of type humans. So Kupe made landfall at Pātea, and he then saw the people of there, which was the original people. There was Kāre Hunga, the Kāre Hunga o Ngā Kāra, down there at the Pātea River. He also met with Whakapapa. In saying that, Kupe had a number of people on board his block, and one of them was his daughter, Kurarei. Kurarei was left there at Pātea, and she in time married Taikeu. Taikeu, a major figure of the Pātea area, one of our oldest tupunas, Taikeu marries Kurarei. And from there, a number of our wānau, not only the Pātea area, but right through Ngāru and Wānau, and up to mid and northern Taranaki as well. So that's the arrival of Kupe. As we all know, Kupe went home. Ka hoki a Kupe, Hokianga Nui, the great return back to Hawaii. When he got to Hawaii, when he arrived back in Hawaii, well, there's two ports. When he was at sea, is one of them. Another one is that when Kupe arrived at Hawaii, back at a place called Te Awaroa, Kupe saw his brother-in-law, Turi. Turi. The tensions were high back in Hawaii, where there was a war going on because there was just too many people. That's a standard order. So Kupe told Turi, I found a place. It's a cold place. And he then gave instructions via the wetu, via the stars, navigation points, on how to get to Aotearoa. And he goes, when you get there, go to the other side of the island, and then come down from the other side of the island. And once you get there, once you get there to the other side of the island, you'll find a river. And you'll find an area at the mouth of the river, I had tied a bunch of flats together. It's just a deliberate landmark for Turi to find. So Turi set sail from Hawaii on the waka Aotea. So the waka Aotea and the waka Matahorua, Kupe's waka Matahorua are twin waka. So they've been brought from the same tree. Kupe is, as I mentioned, is Turi's brother-in-law. They both married sisters, Rongorongo and Kuramarotini. Kuramarotini, well known by most as the wedding that actually saw Aotearoa. And then she uttered the words, Aotearoa. From there, just going back to Turi, he said so. And I'll just cut the sail part pretty. Oh yes, Wakarapa so just show him that he arrives at Patea, right? But before arriving at Patea, he actually arrived at Kāwia, and he and his people let the waka Tangaroa go back to the sea, so they better go. So they took it, right? He let the waka go back out to sea. The waka, she had done her part, and that's Julian and his people from here stayed at Kāwia for some time. Now, according to the people at Kāwia, Julian married again a kuia by the name of Hinekewa. Hinekewa is Hoturoa te Wakatainui, Hoturoa's sister. Yeah, so he married again, and there is a line of our tupuna there at Kāwia. Kāwia meaning to embrace. One of the translations is to embrace and protect Kāwia. So Turi intoned the incantations, and the name of the incantation was the Kāwia, to embrace and protect his people here on this new land. From Kāwia, they walked, the people of Turi walked all the way down to Patea, and you can find this information. As I say, I'm just cutting it short here. So Turi arrives at Patea, meets up with the tangata whenua, and from there, the people of Aotea marry in to the people of Ngāreru Tūturu, to the people of the land. Okay? Now, I believe that kōrero there, that story there, pretty well known kōrero. Again, like other, there are different versions, but the guts of the kōrero, the core of the kōrero is all the same. Okay? So, you can see on our screen now, this gentleman here is from Te Ara and Ngāti Pukenga, Tauranga Moana. He's a descendant of Rauru, so that's his first, my first acknowledgement to him. His name is Sergio Williams, High Court Judge, Puiatena, a learned man, a man that knows a lot of our tradition in Te Ao Māori, and of course he knows and understands the law of the land, LAW. I have chosen this video here of Joe because he's got some real strong points here. There's a lot of learning in this particular video about relationships, about wanaungata. He speaks a bit about kupe. He also speaks about the toi tradition. That's the tradition I've spoken about today. And he speaks also about kupe, the kupe tradition. Then he goes on to talk about wanaungatanga, relationships. And that's the reason why I've chosen this video at this point in time to share with us, because it's as I say, there's a lot of wealth in this kōrero from Joe that can be very helpful for us as we continue on this journey at Tātauma. Very helpful information indeed. So on that note, Cousin Martin, can you please play the video? Joe Green, Joe Williams tēnei tatama. Hoi mahi o wana ngā mā.
Kia ora. Kia whānau. Let me know if we're having sound problems again, so I'll play it now.
Whakaruru hau mo ngā whakatupuranga mai anō I te wā i a rātau mā.
Can you hear it, Rauru?
Ai wawatai rātau, kia whakatūngia he whare Māori wainga nui te
Yes, I can.
mātoturutanga o
Kia ora.
te iwi tēnei au ka mihi ake ki a koe e whakaruru hau tonu nei, e whakamaru tonu nei, e manaaki tonu nei i a mātou. Tēnei ata, tēnā koutou tēnā. Kua mihi ake ko ngā mihi, hoa no tāku, he tautoko ake. Ka mutu, kua tangihia ngā roi mata mo rātau ko wehe ki te pō, hoa no tāku, he tautoko ake. Nō reira rātau kia rātau, tātau kia tātau. Well, you can see that the heading here is the Treaty of Waitangi and whānau, hapu and iwi well-being. Now, I don't know how to do PowerPoint presentations, and I got my research clerk to make this up, and TPK and Suparu told me I had to talk about the Treaty of Waitangi and whānau, hapu and iwi well-being. I'm not really going to talk about that. But you know you're at a big hui when your two opening keynotes are a psychiatrist and a judge. You know you got some real big problems to solve if you get a shrink and a jailer to come and talk to you. So I wanted to talk about something that I think is kind of deeper than the treaty. I think the treaty is probably given too much to carry, and that we've got a deeper kōrero that the treaty sits on top of and we don't think enough about. And it's kind of relevant to our hui. So I thought I would work that idea with you a little bit, if you'll bear with me, in the 22 minutes and 47 seconds I now have left. Does that work? Oh, yeah. So about 1,000 years ago, as we know, Kupe, Kura Marotini, their great nieces Matu and Mākaro, and about 22 others from Hawaii did what no human being had ever done before. Travelled a greater distance than any human being had ever done before. In fact, the greatest feat of any Polynesian. And the Polynesians were the greatest astronauts of their time. And the thing they travelled in, this is a rendition of Kupe's Waka Matahaurua, was the height of the technology at the time, the fastest craft on the planet, land or sea, at the time. Capable, in this case, of travelling 3,500 miles, 4 weeks without sight of land, without breaking up, to a place Kupe didn't know. I've structured the sentence wrongly. Kupe didn't know where it was. Sorry, those of you who are grammarians know I screwed that sentence up, but to somewhere he didn't know where it was. He knew it was there, and his science and his technology told him to be absolutely sure that it was there. He just had to find it. He was the navigator. And of course, he didn't. It was his wife who found it. Because what did she say? What did she say? Wahine ma, what did she say? He ao te aroa. A cloud, a long white cloud. Actually, what she probably said was kupe. E oho. Now, on behalf of the men in the room, I'm sympathetic because he was the navigator. He's up all night. He was probably fast asleep. He was probably grabbing a few minutes sleep. when she saw this vast convection cloud, a bigger cloud than any Polynesian had ever seen in the history of our race. So she didn't just say, he ao, he ao, te roa. She said, he ao! Kupe, he ao! Holy shit! That's what she really said. Sorry, Whata. And when they came on Matawhaurua, now I know there are traditions on the East Coast that say it wasn't kupe, and I don't belittle those traditions at all. I'm just telling you the traditions I know. Now I know there are those who say, ko toi ke, ko wai ke rānei ke. And you could equally say that was the waka belonging to that explorer. But the traditions I know say it was kupe, and that's what I'm talking about right now. When he came, he and Kura and the 22 others on board weren't a blank slate. Not only did they bring a system of technology with them, they brought a system of values and of law and of social organization that had worked well in tropical Polynesia, and they transplanted it to very temperate and occasionally sub-Antarctic Aotearoa. It's the laws that I want to talk about. A system of values and principles for the organization and administration of kin communities. This is the kind of, to me, this is a deeper set of ideas than the treaty carries. And we kind of forget it. And we need to remember it when we are thinking about whānau hapu and iwi well-being. Here's the system of law these great explorers, the greatest explorers on the planet then or since. We know that because, what's his name, Diamond? Not Paul Diamond, no, the famous anthropologist. Not Neil Diamond either, the singer. Someone Diamond wrote Germs, Guns and Steel and Collapse. Very, very famous anthropologist. Jared Diamond, that's right. He said that the exploration of the Pacific by the Polynesian people was the greatest feat of the human species. And what I like about that story, as I'm going to take it, is that the greatest of all those journeys was this one. Because he had to cross south, across the roaring 40s into another tropic. In order to get where he was going, he had no idea what was there. So if you ever have a chance to explore these, what went on during this period and be proud either to be a Māori or a New Zealander, do it, because this story should be told and retold in every school in our country to make us all feel a little bit of well-being, and frankly, it's not. So, 5 principles drove these explorers. And the most important of them all was what I call the principle or the law of whanaungatanga. The centrality of kinship and of careful attention to relationships above all else. So we know that whanaungatanga controlled and controls relationships between us humans. In his day, and for the entire period up until the arrival of the treaty itself, all of your rights and obligations, your social status, were initially at least defined by your whanaungatanga relationship. That's why Māoris remembered their whakapapa. Because it wasn't just a cool thing to list all those names. Your rights depended on you remembering that whakapapa. Your rights to land, to water, to fisheries, to mountains, to rivers, your rights and obligations to those around you were all defined by this motivating principle, this impelling principle called whanaungatanga. But it wasn't just, whanaungatanga wasn't just about relationships between people. Every time a speaker stands on the marae, every time a kuia calls, she speaks to the dead. Why does she do that? Because of the law of whanaungatanga. Because whanaungatanga reaches into the past and reaches forward to the future. It creates rights and obligations with respect to your dead and with respect to your yet born. And even that's not enough, because whanaungatanga is the way in which those old people explained their relationships with the physical environment. They had no idea, in my respectful view, about me owning that mountain. They had no idea about me owning that river. Had a very good idea about the river owning me. But the idea of property in something actually belonged in the Northern Hemisphere. What these people did was say, I am related to that thing. So when they talked about maunga A or B, they said, e koro e kui. When they talked about the awa, they said and still say, kuau ko te awa kuau. They encapsulated all of their relationships with the physical environment as kinship relationships. Because inherent in the idea of kinship is the idea both of right, because you know they had to eat and drink, and of obligation. Actually an idea not central to the concept of property, but deep in Kupe's consciousness. And not just that, the entire non-physical world, knowledge itself, was explained using whakapapa, and still is. So you want to understand how plants are related to one another? You have to understand their whakapapa. Now, I'm not talking about Linnaean whakapapa, I'm talking about Māori whakapapa. Why was that? You know, when Rauru Broughton took me into the bush and said, anei ngā tupu mo tēnā, mo tēnā, mo tēnā, here are the rongoa plants, he explained that to me in whakapapa terms in order for me to understand that you stay with the senior line if you can. Stay away from the junior line, they're likely to be trouble. That's actually a deep Māori idea. The junior line is likely to be trouble. But sometimes the junior line will be your salvation because the older ones will fail you. Hea te mahi a te teina he rōnaki I ngā mate o te tuakana. What must the teina do? Make good on the wrongs of their seniors. So, the whole world, visible and invisible, was explained, rationalized, realized, and rendered tangible by the law of whanaungatanga. And if you take nothing else from what I say, remember that. Because that's more important than the treaty, in my view. I'm not saying the treaty is unimportant. I spent a career working with the treaty. But that idea is what makes us Māori more than anything else. So, he bought things like mana, tapu, utu, kaitiakitanga. But when you think about all of those ideas, they are all different faces of the rights and obligations of kinship. Now that system worked pretty well till about 1812, something like that, and a new system came. This new law was fundamentally different. It introduced the idea not of highly fractionated leadership systems, valley by valley, every valley having a king or a queen. And you have to remember that whakapapa meant senior lines weren't just male lines. There were very strong female senior lines, and that's why women insisted on signing the treaty, because their whakapapa was better. And of course the Brits said, no, you can't do that. So the idea of a central crown with unrelated officials dispensing its law gets introduced here. Unrelated in the sense that you have no whanaungatanga tie with them. The idea of individual dignity and the autonomy of the subject or the citizen. An idea slightly strange to the Māori who thought inherently and instinctively collectively, even though mana actually has an individual dignity aspect to it. And this is a key one, because social and economic relationships weren't defined by kinship by this tribe. Kinship had nothing to do with social and economic relationships. All of your social and economic relationships, at least since the Industrial Revolution, and they were in the middle of the second part of that right at this time, were defined by contract, freely entered into by theoretically autonomous individuals. Absolutely fundamental to this system of law. And relationships with the environment were not kinship relationships, they were encapsulated in the idea of property, of ownership. John Locke's idea that the role of government is to protect the individual property rights of citizens or subjects. So, you've got to get the clash between these two systems. In understanding the clash between these two systems, you've got to get how fundamental that difference is between a system whose impelling power is kinship and a system whose impelling power is property, augmented by the autonomous power to enter into contracts in respect of that property. So, it's kind of like this. A Māori without a whakapapa, without whanaungatanga, is like a capitalist, an American, let's say, for present purposes, without a dollar. I don't mean that in any pejorative way at all. I mean it in a purely functional way. That system organises itself in that way, that system organises itself in that other way, and they went bang together. And the idea of whanaungatanga was summarily, militarily, and legally removed from the economy, from the law, and the religion of these people. The hapu was no longer the resource allocator in accordance with whanaungatanga requirements. Central government did that now through land title systems. And of course by introducing for Māori the Native Land Act, whose job it was to individualise title into scrip in order for individual Māori to sell it behind the backs of their communities. And hapu and whānau no longer had social control mechanisms, no longer had the levers of social control over their members. The police, the courts, and the government took that role. So whanaungatanga no longer had a practical, economic, or political role. Over a period of about 100 years. Now, despite that, I haven't got that up there, but despite that, around 1940, a guy named J.C. Beaglehole wrote a book called The Māori Today. It was for the millennium, for the centenary at the time. And he was struck, he wrote in this book, something that sort of surprised me now when I read it. He was struck by the low level of mental illness among Māori as late as 1940. As they continued to live whanaungatanga lives despite the removal of the political and legal and economic utility of whanaungatanga. Right up into the 1940s, Māoris were not in mental institutions. And the statistics at the time show that Māoris were not in courts in the 1940s. That phenomenon, both phenomena, sharply rising, occurs in the 50s and 60s as we move to the cities. And the big dent in whanaungatanga occurs once that break is made. So, let me talk a little bit about some of the deficit stuff that I have walked away from my seat just up the road in the High Court in Wellington, to talk to you about here in hopefully a more positive light. So the result of this collision, this 170-year collision between property, individualism and whanaungatanga, can be seen reasonably clearly. This is in my life, so these are numbers that are real to me because I see them every day. 55% of those in prison are Māori, and that has been stubbornly so, even though our population is growing spectacularly. Our population has grown by 1 million over the last decade and a half, I guess. Len, you'll know. It's grown very quickly, but stubbornly, Māoris are stuck at 55%. For Māori women, much worse, 60%. Māori children are 60% of the SIF removals in this country. 5,000 kids a year, 3,000 are Māori. 83% of people under 20 in prison have been in SIF care. You'll instinctively know these numbers are right. You may know them much better than I do. 3 times more likely to be arrested, 3 to 4 times more likely to be charged if they are arrested, 11 times more likely to be remanded in custody instead of bailed, 4 times more likely to be convicted, and that's not just than Pākehā, that's than other New Zealanders. 7 times more likely to be imprisoned. These are shameful numbers. And of course, they speak to wellness. But that's not the end of the story. And I'm afraid that messages get a little scrambled now because I've thrown this together relatively quickly. Please bear with my subpar performance. Yet whanaungatanga still lives. That's the extraordinary thing. After all of that, yet whanaungatanga still lives when it is legally, economically and politically redundant, and has been for more than 100 years, yet whanaungatanga still lives and has found voice in what I call the third law of Aotearoa New Zealand after 1975 and the passing of the Treaty of Waitangi Act. I was driving back from Taranaki over the weekend. Drove past a number of Māori villages and then kept seeing these marae as I headed south through the 8 Taranaki tribes, through into Ngāti Apa territory, to Wanganui, Ngāti Apa, into Ngāti Raukawa. Every now and then I'd see a marae that it was just the marae. A marae, a wharekai, and an urupa. Village gone. Land gone. And yet that marae still lives. What sort of resilience does that tell you about? What level of resilience would have you, all of you having moved away, would have you painting that whare, taking your tangi there, holding all of your main events there, still, even when the community is left. And I'm not talking about 1 or 2 marae, I would have seen half a dozen of them. That tells you about the resilience of this principle that Kupe brought, called whanaungatanga. The demographers, I hope Len will agree with me on this, the demographers I think say that Māori are more collectively minded. They contribute more to their community than their Pākehā colleagues, than their New Zealand colleagues. They are more whanaungatanga oriented, even after the trauma of the last 100 years. And we're kind of in a time, I've got 50 seconds, we're kind of in a time where technology has actually made our whanaungatanga a thing that is achievable in the ether. We can find and rebuild our whanaungatanga communities in ways that actually in ways that even I struggle to imagine. And whanaungatanga is being reborn on Facebook, as my kids tell me, Twitter, and you know, all those other bird things. And I think those acronyms are Treaty of Waitangi Act, Ture Whenua Māori Act, Resource Management Act, Children and Young Persons and Their Family Act, currently being reviewed, watch that closely, Criminal Justice Amendment Act 1985, all of which said that tikanga speaks in the law, all of which mean whanaungatanga is important in our environmental management, in sentencing, in the treatment of our children, in the administration of our land. So, to me, this is why this hui is so important. Whanaungatanga is the great challenge of the post-settlement era. You see, the settlements that our tribes got are actually tiny. Round about $3,000 per head usually, $3,000 to $4,000 per head. About a tenth or less than the sorts of settlements you get in Australia or Canada. A flat screen TV. And the challenge is being able to use that pūtea, in whatever form it is, to reignite the whanaungatanga that whānau and hapu have with their iwi. The danger, I know my time is up, it's yelling at me now. The danger is that iwi will become corporate funds. It's not their fault. The loot is tiny. And it's not enough to touch the lives of their people in a practical way, and won't be for a little while. The only way that can be made to work is if partnerships are established with government and iwi to re-enliven and make real Kupe's legacy. You see, the government can't do whānau, hapu and iwi wellness, in my view. It just can't. And with the resources iwi have, they can't either. But as partners, we can give new life in this third phase of our development as a country to Kupe's principle of whanaungatanga. Tēnā koutou katoa.
Kasia ke te kuranga tila e Joe tēnei tonu te mi ake rā kia poe. Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you for sharing to your kōrero to us today. And of course, being the descendant of Rauru, that's his connection here to our kōrero today. Hey, what a superb kōrero it was. He talks about kupe and bringing the whanaungatanga, and that's from his house of learning, that's from his traditions. He also mentioned toi, and he acknowledges what we've been talking about today. From our point, e tātou mā, whanaungatanga was here before Rauru, and from Rauru down to us, to the very day. Whanaungatanga, as he's mentioned, Joe has mentioned a number of things. That's what keeps us together. That's what keeps us together. That's what binds us. A couple of interesting points that I've noted here. One being we're all connected to the earth, to the sky. That's Rauru of the gods, and that's our connection back to the whole world and the universe that we live in. So Whakapapa is crucial. Whakapapa is the kaupapa that we have here today. Also, tātou he goes on to talk about our that we should follow nature itself, is what he was basically saying. That's that senior line, right? That he's referring to. Let nature, let us work with nature, not us against nature, and all those sorts of things. But Wananga, he spoke about, again, the connection to our kōrero today. Talked about Taranaki. He was driving through the iwi of Taranaki, and the interesting thing he saw, there's a marae here, there's a marae there, right through Wanganui, Ngāti up on our way to get down to Raukawa and down to his house in Wellington. And he saw a half of the marae, as we do, as they are. They're there on the sides of the main road, some of them. And the resilience, the strength that we still had, although in the 1950s and 60s, that whole urban drift, right? Where people have left the kāinga, we have left our fires of the home, our marae and so forth, and a lot of us, and then moved out into the cities, work and other opportunities for us and our families. But the point that he's making there, and I love it, is that, we still continue to link back to our marae. May it be in a big way over the last 50 years plus, but yeah, the marae was still looked after. May it be by the few that were at home. May it be by whānau that were living in Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, and they'll come back when they could. That wanaungatanga, that link to the home fires, back to the marae, to our lingua, certainly is strong. And that's right across the country. Most we did continue to look after. And as you say, for our functions, for our events, birthdays, tangianga, weddings, and so forth. That's the mana that we still have. I'd like to also add to what Joe has said. We've been through a hell of a history. If I can come down to the coming of Captain Cook, not long after, we had a new wave of people trying to take over our lands, our lives, and so forth. Looking at bringing in religion that wasn't ours. Colonization is what I'm talking about here. We're talking about the loss of language. We're talking about, well, obviously, the loss of people over the land wars and various other situations that were similar. This is as I say, we've had a hell of a history, but the marae and the wanaungatanga still stands down to this day. Still stands down to this day. And even with some of our wanaunga that have just started coming back home, that's the tie, that's the force of the wanaungatanga that's being talked about here. Just a bit different from our traditions. We go back to toi and beyond. That's our wanaungatanga here. Kupe Kei. And he, well, his descendants then married in to the tangata tūturu, to the people that were here prior. So yeah, real strong kōrero there from Joe. Just a couple of other points I see from Joe. Number one, another one is talking about mental illness, talking about the courts and those sorts of things. Back in the 1940 was the date that he gave. Very low. In fact, nothing, close to nothing in terms of that. So as time went on, our health started to we became ill, sugar diabetes and so forth and so forth. But yeah, it's something that you can look back on at tātou mā. But the main key here is wanaungatanga, right? And for Waipapa, that's what we're after here at Waipapa. And speaking with Maanga and Co, it's that wanaungatanga back to the land, and that's all about. And ngā reira, having that wanaungatanga. And that gives us that key of life, of hauora, health, right? It gives us our health and our well-being. The marae, and I heard when he swore there, Joe, he apologised to Whatarangi Winia. And Whatarangi Winiata, of course, I've worked alongside Te Waipapa for some years. And he always says that the marae is the principal home. And people are our wealth. So that's really where this is aimed at, this whole wānanga here today. So Whakapapa, from Toi Tuatai, Ngariki, Toi Tuatai, down to Te Kawi there, down to Turi, and then from Turi, who marries and his people marry into our tangata whenua over here, and then upon our hapu of the region, our hapu of the region, e tātou mā. I just want to talk about a couple of things because later on, fairly shortly actually, I'm going to speak again with Martin and also bring Kirsten into the conversation as well, because as I said at the outset of this corridor, this is the base of this one is Waipapa, and we'll talk a bit about what's going on at Waipapa and those sorts of things. What are the aspirations? What are the dreams? And what are the goals for this of our this marae of ours? So I've spoken about Rauru. I've spoken a bit about Turi. I'm looking here at some of our hapu. So we've got some photos. We're going to go to the photos actually of our marae. I'll just give you a bit of time while you're doing that, because I'll just have a bit of a spiel here. So the Turi, I know I'm repeating myself. I'm actually doing it deliberately. Turi and his people marry into the Rauru people, to the Kawi there, and the other true blue tangata whenua. And from there are formed different iwi, different Whakapapa come. We marry in to the Waka people, if you put it that way, and the people of the land that were here, that were born and bred here, right? And then the lines go down into our various hapu and our various iwi, e tātou mā. So here we have it, the photos of our marae here, and Rauru. Now, one of the questions that's asked, what are our boundaries? Really great that there's a section in the origins of Rauru Kitai about boundaries. So you can read that. But basically, the boundaries of Rauru iwi today, of yesteryear, is from the northern part of the Pātea River, Waikiri, down to the northern area of the Whanganui River. Those are our, that's our way. That's our way. Rapauti o ngā rau, tērā. So I'm just going to go around and start speaking about some of the marae. We're going to get a bigger one on Waiotiri, or?
Yep. Waiotiri.
Yeah, Waiotiri.
Yes.
Very hot outside, it's up there, man. I know there's some of the I've got some Facebook corridor saying that you're outside listening. Kia ora koutou. I should have took my music outside. Got a presentation from there.
Yeah. So I'll move this over there.
By as our means sorting out the photos of our marae e tātou mā. Inland from Te Kiri o Rauru, which is the coastal area of Rauru, between those two rivers really, Pātea and Wainui, and inland to mate, onga, mate aonga, mate iaonga is the mountain range, and we come into that area as well. So yeah, koina te roe o tō tātou roe I tātou mā. I'll go straight to it myself, the quarter. So Waio Turi, there we have it there. There's a number of hapu here, as we know. There's and iwi. So there's Rangitāwi, there's Ngāti Ine, there's Te Kairākau, and iwi there's Te Pakapuhi as well. Some say, some of the old people have written that Pukorokoro is there as well, including Wenua Kura and these Ngāti Maika Tuatai. Some of the hapu in this region. Question that's often asked: how come there's so many hapu in one place? Well, it wasn't out of the ordinary. No, because we were a nomadic people. And remembering just across, we can see the photo in front of us. At the back of the marae is the Pātea River, Te Awanuia Taikenu, and just beyond that, what's in the township, then we're going into the Ngāti Ruanui area. Ka pai? So there's always an overlap of tupuna. Yes, that's right. And Manaia is another tēnā koe tama pōkai, and others. There's a list of about 35 hapu. But these are the ones that are known today. The reason why I'm only staying on these hapu is because these are the ones that are talked about on a regular basis. The iwi here is Ngā Rauru Kitai originally, and still today. When the Whakaotea, this is basically HQ for the Whakaotea, headquarters, ko Ngāti Ruanui o ki kei konei. And another iwi there is Kātino Otea, here at Waiko Turio, in that wānau, in this particular area. In saying that, at Tātou Mā, the Te Kāwirere was also there, because just behind the marae again is located around that area as Puanga, Punangarane, and that's where the gift of flight was given to Te Kawaiwa. Yeah, and the Kāwirere clan. So they also come in there. So there's multitude of hapu and iwi in this particular area of Waioturi. But the main tupuna coming down from Te Kārai Unga Unga, and this can be found at the back of the origins of Ngā Rauru Kitai, is Taikeru. And the name of the river is Te Awanuia Taikeru, the Te Awanuia Pātea, Te Pātea Turirane, came into place when Turi arrived. Okay? So that's just a bit about this particular marae of ours. And you can also link. And being on the boundary into another iwi, which is Asimile, there's always that overlap, right? That happens even when we get to Mōkau, and then we've got Ngāti Maniapoto there as well. The interesting thing too is when it comes to Te Reo, the mita, the dialect, that interaction with the other Wanaunga, all about Wanaunga, you can hear with certain people that are brought up at a aukati, a boundary like this, and a boundary going into another iwi, their language is a blend of both. Yeah, it's a blend of both. So I just thought I'll add that. So that's Te Waioturi tēnā. We can go down to Wenua Kura, please. Now, Wenua Kura, Wenua Kura te marae tūnei, Wenua Kura, and here, what's written by some of the old people that we ngāpaki and ka, they say Pukorokoro is one of the hapu here. There's also Ngāti Hine Waiata. Now, according to my uncle Julian Broughton, it was his mum, Mike, that heard that name when she was a young girl. Not much is known about their particular hapu e tātou mau. But if you do want extra information, I mean, in the Waiata, or even the whole region, Uncle Julie important be a good person to contact. But an older iwi here, well, older hapu here is Pāmata, and which is also the name of a pā, which is not far from Wenua Kulei of Pāmata. Some of the Ngā Rauru kōrero family states that this is where Ngā Rauru starts. When he te I kōrero. This is some of the kōrero that actually Ngā Rauru starts here. And yeah, so I just thought I'll add that to the kōrero. But it's a very strong Aotea link here, especially with Matangi Rei as to what a tupuna that stands here, a house that was part of Turi, it was part of his family. And Eke Papa is what it kind. There we have the Mara garden of Turi. Now, when they corner. We're going to go down to Waverley now, Wairuaiti, to Wairuaiti. Here is Ngāti Tai. The old people that lived in Ngāti, the older iwi of Ngāti Tai around here is actually Te Kāwi Tara. Now you'll see in the origins of Ngā Rauru Kitai, the Kāwi Tara Whakapapa. So the Kāwi Tara were tupuna that lived at this particular area of Waverley, Inland, to all Kotuku, around the back of Waipapa and those areas, because it was Kāwi Tara. The Kāwi Tara were a people at the same time as the Kāwi Dere. They were a people also that they were more of a coastal people, right? With the Kāwi Tara Tira. Yeah, so that's Wairuaiti, Te Ngāputa Ngāti Tai. I'm going to go now to Te Upuku. Because you're doing a splendid job, Ma. Just thought I'd made a note, man. I'll keep you on. Okay, so this is actually the Urupa, which is Te Upuku. Before it was a Urupa, it was a pā to Wata Wata. And in the early 1800s, around 1815, Te Raupara would often come to this marae, to the pā, and be there with our tupuna. The hapu here, there are a number around the area. There's Ngāti Hine Waiatarua, there's Ngāti Tūraukawa, there's Ngāti Hine Waiata. Ngāti Hine Waiata is what the old people of the marae gazetted the marae under, and Te Aroa. Te Aroa is another hapu of this particular area. Now, in saying that as well, Te Kāwi Rere, this is one of their main kind. So Te Kāwi Rere is one of the older hapu o tēnei marae. And very similar to the last couple of marae that were spoken about, numerous hapu, because numerous people over the years, over the decades, moved to our marae. So there we have it. Some say tēnei te te upuku, the urupa is te upuku, and pare unga is the marae. And that area is straight in front of the wale tupuna e tātou ma. Ka pai, just bring up the next photo. It should be kaipo, wale tāpapa. Wale tāpapa e tātou ma. So all of these link back to Rauru, back to Ngāriki. So when you read the origins of Ngā Rauru Kitai well, you'll see the link there. The Whakapapa's at the back. Okay, wale tāpapa, Ngāti Ho Tipua. I was having a kōrero with cousin Aruna McGregor. The Ho Tipua comes of Te Kāwi Rere and Te Kāwi Tara. Those are the tupuna of of Ngāti Hotipua, and that also links us back again to Rauru, to Ngaiariki. Ka pai. Next photo, please. I don't know which way you're going to go, Kat, but you go where the flow of your fingers takes you. Ka pai. Okay.
Takio.
Okay, got to guess. Ooh. Yeah. Now I've got a viewpoint here from a cartwheel viewpoint from above. And yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. So we're looking at it from the eyes of our flying tupuna. So this is Pilo Nui Takiro tēnei, Ngāti Podua. Ngāti Podua. Ngāti Podua. Now, interesting thing for Waipapa, because the tupuna Podua are descendants again of Turi, Rauru, Ngaiariki. The tupuna Podua moved down to the old Urupa there at Waipapa, which is called Waipapa, so everyone knows. Poronui. And so one of the hapu actually at Waipapa is Ngāti Podua. Ngāti Podua, because he resided there, right? So there's Ngāti Podua there, Ngāriki is there as well at Waipapa. Just thought I'll add that part there. Next marae.
I'll do Waipapa. What is Waipapa while we're in the north? Here we go. Oh, I must do it last. I'll do it last. So there was Takiro Tauranga Ika.
Tauranga Ika, Ngāti Ruaiti tēnei. Ngāti Ruaiti is the hapu. And they descendants, Ruaiti is the descendants of Pogu. And again, going back to that, Ngaiariki. So what I'm doing here is just explaining that, and you can, if you read for yourself, study the origins of Ngaiariki and actually put the links together. It's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. It doesn't take much. It's not so much. But Ngāti Ruaiti is a descendant of Podua, which also takes this tupuna here, Ruaiti, back to Rauru. And those are links back to Waipapa. So all of these marae link back to Waipapa. Next, please.
Which one we got to? Takiro, we're done. Have we done Koipo?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Pakaraka.
Oh, Gatika.
Oh, hang on.
Oh, it's hiding here, huh?
Yeah. Oh. Coming up. Hang on, guys. I don't know what.
Oh, yeah, I do. True blue, huh? Yeah, so actually, I was listening to a call some time ago, and the person was talking about Ngāti Maika. Everything he talked about was actually Maika Tuatai. There's two Maika, right? Again, in our Whakapapa there. Maika Tuatai, and then from Maika Tuatai coming down to Maika Tuarua. So Maika Tuatai obviously is the first Tuatai one. And many generations down from there is Maika Tuarua. It's Maika Tuarua. The tupuna Maika Tuarua, the marae or the hapu is named after here at Pākaraka. But again, going back through those lines, here's another descendant of Kapai. And we'll go to the next
Taipaki. Oh, it's coming up blue too.
Oh. Same situation there, Tapu. Yeah, so Awakawiroa is the marae. And then here in Taipaki, Kaiwi Te Aroa there, all come under Tamare Eroto as the main tupuna, descending again of Rauru, and then back down to Iti and Pukeko. And those are the three marae there. So it's the same, mate.
Yeah.
So all I'm doing here is making the links, and you can make the links in your time back to Rauru through all the hapu names. Ka pai? That sounds like a disaster, in terms of the photos.
No, there's another 3 more. So, Te Aroha?
Yes, Te Aroha again. Coming under that Tamari e roto tupuna, who had Iti and Pukeko's sons, which are the hapu names of well, the marae of Taipake, Kaiwi and Te Aroha, come under Ngāti Iti and Ngāti Pukeko. One of the kōrero, Ngāti Keia, Ngāti Iti Keia, Ngāti Pukeko. And I remember asking Auntie Isabel, I said, well, kei wenga wai me, which one's which? She said, well, it was interesting. There was a wānanga, well, a hui, called when Ngāpiki Te Ruaha client died, and they spoke about that. Because there were some of the old people down that way would say, oh, they're both together, you can't split them up, Iti and Pukeko. But what was said at that particular hui, and I know there's variations, that Taipake is Iti, and Kaiwi there, that area is Pukeko. But, from what we've heard from, and what we know, but what we've heard from Joe Williams, yeah, it's correct. He can't split the two, one and the same, and all of that. But, a bit more wānanga around that will be handy at Tautoma, where we can have a bit more koro about the hapu at length. At that. Is there any more marae on?
What's happening here now? There's just 2 more. This one here? Yeah. Kaiwi.
Oh, yes, Kaiwi. Tapai. And there's Kaiwi at Tautoma. Very good. And that comes under, again, that Ngāti Iti, Ngāti Pukeko region. All of those 3 marae I mentioned well. Good to see the marae active too. Some mahi going on there. Good to hear. Fine.
Waipapa.
Here we go. Waipapa. The main imi here, Ngāriki, Ngayariki. One. Ngāti Porua comes in here as well, around the area. And so does Ngā Waiariki. Yeah. Let me explain that. Ngā Waiariki, yes. Down at Polonui area, that's the old Urupa there at Waipapa, there was a people that lived there and their name was Ngā Waiariki. According to some kōrero, the name, or some of those people actually came with and followed the ware and brought the name with them. So that's one. Actually, I'll give you the name of the person that gave that kōrero. Was Uncle Jimmy Sullivan, and he actually showed me the writings around it. Not saying that Ngāriki is not up. It's just, again, a blend. And that's how people moving, together. They might live 5 minutes down the road, but they might have another hapu name. So some of Ngā Waiariki went there, Ngāti Porua went there, Porua himself, the tupuna, and of course Ngāriki in the main tupuna of this marae. Kapai? So I just thought I'll add that in. And it's not a rare occurrence. It happens all the time. Over generations, people move. And a lot of our marae too, e tātou mā, are actually where a lot of them are actually in the place that they stand as the second area. Some of them move because of floods and those sorts of things. Some of them move because of different other reasons. But a lot of them were actually up on the hill, back in the day, or close to water anyway, mainly, close to the rivers. And so these are our marae, e tātou mā, of Ngā Rauru. Just to go back to the boundaries, I'm going to talk about the boundaries here. So from the Pātea River to the Whanganui River. Now when we go into Whanganui, and that's our people again, that's us again, e tātou mā. There's some discrepancies. That Ngā Rauru goes as far as Wanganui Township. It does. Actually, Cobblin Bridge, that big bridge there in town in Putiki, that's our the Pungare. And then down to the Castle Beach area. That's once again, that's Te Kai Au Kupe, Te Kai Au Kupe Rane. And then coming back to St. John's Hill, Kairo, that's us again. There's Virginia Lake and all those areas. Now, one of the interesting things over the last 30 plus years, a lot of people in Wainui have sold like the St. Mary's School and various other places, land. And when they look at the original land document, they find that Ngāra is actually the iwi, even up to Aramo, and Ngāra is there. But as I said, there's a bit of discrepancy with our Wāno of Wainui, which is us anyway, saying, oh, no, you don't come down this far. And it makes sense because, the awa tipu o Wainui flow in there. But we did. One of the other things with those areas like St. John's Hill, those areas like that, we'll go there in the summer times like this, to fish. So probably we'll go down there then. Then we'll go back, anyway, we'll go back to Waiubi, we'll go back to Waipapa, we'll go back to Waiotui or wherever it may be. So, yeah. But if you want to know more about that portal, again, original Rauru Kite, and other documents as well, other documents, other information that's out there. The Model Land Court has information and various other parts. But our main goal here at Te Wānau was really to look at the links, look at Hui Atukuna, Ngāri Ki Ngā, Ngaiariki, Toi, Rauru, Te Ata Turi, and Te Atu us today in our hapu, which we've just done. In conclusion, I want to conclude here. I want to bring Mahang and Kirsten in to have a bit of a kōrero about Waipapa of 2022. I know we've just started the year off, but what's happening there in that space. But yeah, ka pai e tātou mā, in conclusion, for me it's been good just to share. There are various other kōrero, other information out there. Take what you want from this kōrero, take what you want, leave what you don't want. That's okay. And the main thing is that the kōrero is happening, the information is flowing, and we've got a wanaungatanga. Here we are living in these real awkward times of COVID, but we can still, connect with each other, may it be via Zoom and this type of platform. So yeah, and I hope that that you've received some good kōrero for you and your whānau, and always share it, Always share it. Keep that kōrero going. A pātai that was asked to me actually before the Zoom, how does one go when it comes to sharing information at this level, especially using Zoom and books and that stuff? I only go with what's known out there at this stage. Some of the higher or deeper knowledge is really for the marae. There's things for the marae, and certain kōreros for certain people. And what does that mean? It's not being kaipori or selfish. It's, are you going to use it, or are you just going to store that information and keep it in a book? And it's got to be utilised. It's a living culture. It's a living culture, So, depending, if someone asks, can I have the 10 karakia that Ngāra Kita used to open up what? I said, you don't even go back to the marae. Why would you want that? You know what I'm saying? You've got to actually utilise it. I will in time, or something like that. You've got to actually be active with some of the knowledge. Okay, you've got to be active with it. So I just thought I'd put that out. None of what was spoken about here is tapu, but it has its own mana, absolutely, and it has its own importance, absolutely. A lot of wealth there. So I'd just like to acknowledge the tupuna at this time, because this is their quarter, not mine. Not mine. Yes, to our tupuna tēnā also. And to our whānau of today that's joined, and other whānau that might join the recording call. Yeah, keep it well, and with anything that we learn, learn it with love and learn it with respect. Maybe we'll be writing it down or typing it up and all those sorts of things, because we're talking about us and our tupuna e tātou maha. So that part e tātou maha. Oh, one more part, and this is one more part before I go to Martin and Kirsten. Whakapapa of each whānau, and I'm talking about the Tikiku lines, the Karipa lines, Tāmo, and various other. There is a time, this is the stuff I'm talking about, that's better shared at the marae. So where you can have your input. I do have, I had the Tikiku line, I've been for a long time, and that comes from Tito Kawaru's line and Tito Kawaru's sister. But it's better when we sit together and start sharing and start looking at things, and you can ask the questions, and we can have one another there, and that sort of stuff. So I'm just talking about the families that are there of Waipapa, for example. That's better done that way. You bring, this is my nini, how do I link here? Or this is my koro, how do I link here? And we just bring our Whakapapa in as one, and start linking all of our tupuna together, and that's our whanaungatanga. There was also, there may be a case or a couple of situations where we don't quite find the link. We don't quite find the link then, right? My tupuna was brought up at Waipapa, but this is their name, and we go, okay, and we start looking for the Whakapapa, talking about it. We may not just find the link right there and then, but we certainly will in time. There will be some sort of wānanga going on where we can work on it, work in progress. So that's it from me at tātou. What is our time, Maha?
Almost 1:45. Almost.
Well, I'll bring you in now at this point in time. So these are my cousins. So in terms of Whakapapa, Whakapapa to the tōpaki line, through our tāmano, that's my grandfather's side. And over here to Kirsten, it's a cousin, her nanny te ako, or ki tamu was the tipuna, relates to my grandmother at Pakaraka with the Ngāti Maika line. So, I suppose my question for you, start with you, Mahanga. These whānau, great idea. Where did the idea stem from?
Okay. Well, I suppose it goes back, so 25 years ago, I was fortunate to do a degree in hapu iwi development at Te Wananga o Raukawa. And because I was really interested in what is whānau development, because around about 25 years ago, you hear this word whānau development, hapu iwi development, and I didn't quite understood it. And until I did a te reo course down in Raukawa, because I was raised in living in Rupoko, and I ended up at Te Wananga o Raukawa, and I had graduated in it, and there was a lot of learnings I had discovered, the impact of colonisation, how it's impacted on our people throughout the motu. What I discovered was the struggles of our some of the struggles of our marae, but as Joe Williams had pointed out, the resilience, the village has left, but our people still connect back. And I discovered that a lot of the marae. I sat with 50 marae trustees from around the motu, had a really interesting discussion and learning. And what I had discovered was back then they were wanting to look at strategies. How do we get our people connected back with the marae? Those who have been disconnected, such as myself from home, Waipapa. And from that, there was just so much learning and the struggles that our people have within society, being disconnected from the marae, hapu and iwi, and the impact of colonisation. And so I was fortunate to graduate at Te Wānanga o Raukua and be among other people from around the motu with other marae trustees are wanting to learn about development and strategies and how we get our people reconnected. But I was really even more fortunate to be mentored under Whatarangi Winiata, Professor Whatarangi Winiata. When I had graduated, he had a position, he had offered me a position to be the marketing manager. So I became the marketing manager for Te Wānanga o Raukua for 10 years. And I was privileged to be in his office and learn so much. And like you brought up Joe Williams, you know, they would come into his office, Helen Clark, you know, all these people from around the motu, and just listening and learning and hearing the stories. And then when I came back home here, well, I up here at Wanganui. My wife's the principal at St. Marcelin here in Wanganui. First Māori wahine and female for St. Marcelin. And so when I left Levin 5 years ago, I said to my wife, "Oh, what, you really keen to leave Levin and we're going to move to the Awa?" She says, "Yeah, well, she wanted to change." So anyway, we moved here 5 years ago. And then Mum said to me, "Hey, look, son, you've always supported Dad's side." So I've been involved in iwi treaty settlements for over 25 years. I was the youngest iwi chairperson for a tribal authority, Murupoko Tribal Authority. And yeah, I've done lots of work down in Wellington with iwi. And so Mum said to me, "Be nice if you could go back to Mummy." And so, so I connected with some of the cousins back home at Waipapa. And I saw, I guess, an opportunity where I can be, I suppose, be able to contribute. So I just did a little assessment just myself, and I said to Anuru, I says, because Anuru is the treasurer, I said to Anuru, "Hey, how many of our whānau lay their tūpapaku back home?" Because I noticed it was quite underutilised. And so I just did a little assessment, and what I discovered myself is that we've only had 5 tūpapaku that has laid back at home since 2008, 9. And I thought, oh, right, okay. And then I spoke to some of the whānau, and when I started attending some of the meetings, because I have a background in marae strategic planning, and so I would ask some of the trustees whānau and say, "Oh, do we have a strategic plan?" And someone said, "Oh, no, no." And so I discovered some areas where I could, be of help, how I can support. Because Mum always said to me, we go back home, be a koha, not a hoha. She always made sure, always support home, because I wasn't raised at home. So those who are taking care of home, I so much respect and aloha for those who sweat their guts out to keep our marae alive and well. And so I just did a little assessment, and then I thought, okay, what did I learn at Te Wānanga o Raukua that I utilised with Murupoko that had helped our people at home? And then I thought maybe I could bring some of that stuff that could be of help. And I remember my uncle, when I first went to Te Wānanga o Raukua, he was a kaumātua of Murupoko. He said to me, "Neff, go there if you see any taonga, that can help us." here, bring them back. But he said, don't bring them all back. They, what taonga you or gemstones you feel that could be of help, bring them back home. And so I see some opportunities at home, how we can reconnect. And so I started talking among the people, and thought it'd be awesome if we could have wānanga, begin there, and have a discussion with our people. What type of wānanga, do they want to see happen at home, eh? Because like you said, cousin, the best place for this to happen is at home, which we know. Kānui, ki te kānui. And so I thought, well, hey, look, maybe we'll start off here, online as a beginning that can build an interest towards Labour weekend. Hopefully it's safe for us to all come together. If not, whenever the time is right. And so, yeah, and an opportunity for us to whakawhanaungatanga and pukingatanga to enhance our skills and matauranga, which doesn't what you're sharing with us. I've learned so much, and we all have a skill base to bring home. Innovation learning. What are the learnings in education or technologies that can be brought back home to help sustain our marae, culturally, environmentally, and economically? What are the opportunities that we can develop an economic base to sustain home? As we know, back in the 60s and 70s, an income for our maraes were housing. Back in the day. And of course, those who did the mahi, well, you had the bigger voice. And that's how it was, tikanga. Today, our maraes are relying on funding that come from other sources. And so when we're tapping funding from agencies, there's a requirement of reporting and accountability, which is where this marae governance comes in. And I've seen a lot of our marae, we've tapped some of those funding, and when we don't report to the systems that's been established from where that funding's come from, all of a sudden the puti has been cut off. And so, just wanting to share, take an opportunity of this to run a series of monthly online wānanga, and there's a lot of skill base right here in whānau. Some whānau might say, hey, look, this is what I have to, I would like to present this kaupapa. Yep, heart of mine. And I hope that we could be a resource to each other, all maraes. So, for example, we could, I said to Anu, hey, look, we need some policies. What marae of Ngā Rauru to have some good policies? We need to form a relationship with them. Can we share? Because when we develop stuff and technologies, I think it's healthy when we sit together, all our maraes, and listen, hey, what are you doing at home? You fellas in any business ventures, it's good to know what our whanaunga next door are up to, and vice versa, empowering each other, because Whatarangi Muniata always said to us, will your marae still be in existence, and will your hapu still be will still be around when 3000 comes? Will our people still be saying, ko Ngā Rauru te iwi, ko Ngāra ki te hapu? Will we be identifying ourselves? So he says, so you need a plan. So he's gone and rolled out a 1,000-year plan for his people to ensure that the 25 marae down in Rauka will survive. So that's it for me, cuz. Kirsten, what to?
Sure. Kia ora whanau. So I'm a new trustee at Waipapa Marae. I whakapapa also to Tūwhare Toa and to Opua Taihape through Koropo Bennett. But I was raised here in Ngā Rauru on Awakauero with my nanny Ada and my whānau over here. So this is the home where my heart sits, is on this side of the river. And growing up on the marae, you learn you learn a lot by osmosis. You understand where you sit in whakapapa, you understand how tikanga flows on the marae through the different events, and it becomes very much intrinsically a part of who you are. And you take that out in the world and you raise your children and you build a career, and that's what I did. And then when I come home recently, I noticed that many things have changed, and the most fundamental thing that has changed is that people have become disconnected from each other, and they've become disconnected from their marae. And a lot of them I spent time working with in Auckland while I was living up there, and I started looking at some of the statistics of the lived experiences of our people in the cities, and it's been a heartbreaking journey for me to understand those journeys and the statistics that inform us. And I just knew in my heart that the solution for a lot of these people was reconnecting with their whānau and with their marae. So I've been on a mission for nearly 5 years now to do what I can to build those pathways for our whānau who are lost in the city to find their way home again. And for a lot of them, all they have is their name. They've got a last name or some little memory from their childhood. And so for me, one of the priorities once becoming a trustee was providing Whakapapa Wananga, fundamental Whakapapa Wananga that whānau can hear about through social media, through these recordings, through whatever documentation we can send out, so that they'll see their name somewhere or the name that they recognise somewhere, and they'll be able to find their pathway home. It's been really exciting working with such a cool and experienced group of people. Anaru is very knowledgeable and well rooted in his history. We've got koro up there, we've got mahanga obviously, and we've got some kaumātua around us who are so supportive and so generous with their knowledge. We've got cousin Rauru here who is willing to stand up and support us whenever we ask. So, and then we've got these rangatahi coming through like young Shay Rogan, and the other ones that have attended Kuru Kaupapa and are deeply rooted in their tikanga and reo. And being able to bring those younger generations and connect them back with their marae and with their people and with their kaumātua so that we can all work together to find those lost ones is really the burning desire for me. I also have a strong heart for the environment, Papatūānuku, and you know, coming home and finding the state that our waters were in, and you know the mining that's going on in Taranaki, and the real threat to our tupuna awa and our whenua has been is put me into a little bit of a panic. I've done a whole lot of study to try and empower myself to be able to walk and work in the world of legislation so we can be effective there as iwi Māori. And I'm hoping that through this series of wānanga we'll also be able to empower anyone who's interested in the environment and working for Papatūānuku to be able to do the same. But first and foremost, we have to make sure that our learning environment is safe. And that's why we've adopted this Zoom platform as our first point of contact with people, while we also look for ways that we can connect kanohi to kanohi on as many of the marae as possible. One of the things what I learned while I was working in the tauiwi world is the art of collaboration. Now, our Wananga, Joe Williams spoke a lot about Wanangatanga, and it's quite funny as he spoke and said that despite everything, Wanangatanga is resilient within us, it's intrinsic within us. So even if we've lost connection with our whānau and our marae, we never lost connection to our Wanangatanga. That always pulls on us. So we are able to leverage that as trustees now. We can use our skill sets to find the pūtea that we need to be able to provide these platforms to give Wanangatanga a chance to grow and develop. And that's really what our strategy for this year has been about, is how can we reinforce our Wanangatanga, not just with each other, with the marae, but also with our environment. Kia ora.
Well, kia ora kōrua. Well, what a superb explanation from both of you. It's good to hear the beautiful ideas and you know, the resources that you both bring back home, and this will assist and help our people not only now but for the future. And that 3000 date that you mentioned, 3000, Yeah, that's where we've got to be thinking. We've been through a hell of a past. A lot of the lands aren't ours anymore. A lot of those resources, the rivers are polluted. And, we've got a lot of work in front of us. At various stages of our journey, from the spiritual area, the traditional area, and all of that. Even bringing in what you mentioned, Kirsten, in terms of learning the policies and keeping up with the damn changing of that particular world as well. They change consistently, and they got a lot of barriers as well. But it's good to see that you and the other trustees, acknowledgement to the other trustees as well, that are doing a fantastic mai. Bueno e TV tēnā koutou katoa. Again, Waipapa, it's been a privilege. Thanks for the tono. My next topic is kawe and tikanga. Mahanga and Co, Kirsten, and the rest of the whānau there will keep us all informed as to when that will be and how that will be. Let's just hope, this COVID just gets out of our lives, and we can just get back to being, and doing what we do. But no, it's been fabulous. It's just been fabulous. I didn't realise how much I could damn talk, geez. But it'll be a bit different next time. I've got other aids and other videos to show for that particular kaupapa, that particular topic. So from me, kia ora, I suppose I'm up with the karakia mā. I'll do our karakia whakamutunga.
Yes, no, but just before you close off, I just want to remind all the whānau, I'll put up a new Zoom link for tomorrow, whānau, at 10 o'clock. So we just got just an hour tomorrow, if you're happy to join us on reflection. And if you got, I understand some whānau have said to me, I've got some questions, but I'm saving them for tomorrow. So, kei te pai. Yeah, kei te pai. So I'll put a Zoom link for tomorrow at 10 o'clock. I'll give Tama a call, who's the admin for Te Kahui Ororu Hapuri page, and the nephew, Daniel Solomon, admin for our Waipapa Mutuera page, who put the link out there, and I'll flick it out on emails. And those who have emailed me, I'll flick it out on your email as well. Kia ora rā. Thank you, whānau. Thank you, Rauru. Is there anything else before Cousin Rauru closes off karakia? No, that's all. Kei te pai. Kia ora rā. Tēnā koe Rauru, ka koe. Ngā mihi.
Tēnā koe pai. Well, tēnā koe te whānau. I've just grabbed my hat. I'm going outside. I'm going to catch some rays out there. Just to link to what you said, Mahanga. I don't want to come on camera tomorrow. Just email those questions, please. Email them, and you want got all afternoon, all night to come up with some pātai, to come up with some questions for us. It'd be strict. I'll come up strictly at 11 because I have another kaupapa on straight after. So 10 a.m. to 11. Catch us all tomorrow at Tawana, tēnā koutou. Kēnei o te taketake e rongo marua wa te wānau ai o ringa te pua kamarua. A moa keu I tāku tōku ko te ao rangi. Wai o rua yoki I runga yoki. Yoki ki te wai au ki te ao marama maru. Marua, kaura tangarua, unui. Unui e mua wakaro te waka. Ia tāne mauta. Te wai au ki te ao marama. Turu au ki te waka maua kia tīna. Tīna. Yeah, tai, yeah. Tēnā tātou.
Kia ora.
Have a nice afternoon.
Kia ora, ka kite.
Ai, ka kite whānau. Hei au pūpū. Sorry, great feedback. Awesome.